Everybody, hello? Hello?
Order LLC, order LLC.
I guess I'm not quite loud enough. I could scream, but. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Peter is not here yet, but I'm gonna get us going because I know a lot of us need to leave early and we need, if too many of us leave early, then we don't have quorum. So, let's start. It is, I don't know, 4:04. This meeting is being called to order. I don't even have the agenda in front of me, so we're just gonna go around and do a roll call.
Alexander Torzeski, student representative.
Amy Zemnick, parent rep.
Teacher rep. Eric Steinler, principal.
Angelica Sepulveda, community relations rep. Not teacher rep, sorry.
Laura Yepes, parent rep.
Brad Kessler, community rep. Paul Kendrick, community rep.
Thank you, Paul. Now it is public participation. So if anybody in the public has something to say, please step up to the podium, state your name. We do time you. You get 3 minutes to speak and then we'll
Speak really
two-
fast.
2 minutes to speak. Sorry.
Okay. Hi, my name is Linda Kim, and I'm here to hopefully connect with individuals and stakeholders interested in building a safer school. So I'm from Loyola University, working on a project to stop school violence. It's a project funded by the Department of Justice and headed by Dr. Kim at the Loyola School of Social Work. So currently we have a youth violence specialist and we work with Mr. Tom G to reduce school violence and cultivate a safer and more positive school environment. We do this primarily by reaching out to and supporting our students during and after school through group activities, in-class lectures, and in-person support. She's usually here twice a week. We also support the teachers and the staff with a drop-in service and provide violence prevention and mental health awareness workshops. So we recently did a virtual parenting workshop, and that was canceled due to lack of participation. We had some registrations. We had like 14 people registered, but somehow no one showed up. Just scratching my head, trying to figure out what happened. So I'm here today trying to connect with various stakeholders to explore violence prevention workshops that you would like to do in the future, and collaborate with other community partners to bring such workshops to the school and the community. Appreciate your support and look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Feel free to reach out to me. You could do that through Mr. G if you have any questions or are interested in such workshops.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I also want, just 1 second. I'm so sorry. I forgot to, because I'm not well prepared for this, to vote in our members online. So can we get approval to welcome in our online members, which I believe are, I can't see a thing. Ted, Sasha, Jane, Okoya. Just Ted, Sasha, and Jane.
Hi.
Okay.
Sandra as well.
Oh,
Oh, Miss Kaler.
and Miss Kaler. Perfect. So 4 members we are welcoming in online. Can I get? Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Okay. Welcome to the meeting. Sorry.
For clarifying purposes, we need to make sure we maintain having room to be able to maintain meeting, and people who are online don't count towards the person. So if we go below 8, we no longer. Oh, physical form.
Yes. Other public participation. Peter, you're good. Breathe.
Hi, everyone. I'm B. These are members of the STEP team. And we're here today because our team is in dire need of uniforms. We're trying to start a fundraiser to afford the uniforms because most of the time, the team members chip into their own pockets to afford the clothes, but we cannot always do that because we cannot afford it most of the time. I brought them here because this is a really important cause for us. We have about 2 to 3 performances a year. And every time we've had a performance, we've encountered a problem with the clothes and not being prepared or us not being able to perform. We also know that the school gives us budgets at times, but the uniforms can be really expensive because it is a step team. So we do have like specific clothes that we need. So for example, our boots may be too expensive for everyone to afford. We are trying to build the future for this team as we just started this team very early and we want it to continue going on. And that starts with the way that we present ourselves. So our uniforms are really important. We always have different events, so it's not ideal for us to use the same uniforms that we've used before. We want to make our uniforms accessible for everyone on the team and for everyone to come, as we hope that there will be more people for the next school year and more school years to come. We also want people to take us seriously as a team because people always identify our seriousness by the way that we look. So our uniforms are very important. As you all know, the other dance teams at the school put in a lot of effort into what they wear, and that is why they look good as a team. So we also want to look good as a team. So we hope that you all can support us on this fundraiser, and we thank you all for giving us the opportunity to share our wants and needs.
Thank you. Can you,
George,
hang on, George,
during the meeting, it's only the people up here, please.
Thank you.
have you all gotten in, has there been a connection between,
Fundraiser.
yeah,
Fundraiser.
Hey, George.
I'll look. If there's any more participation.
okay, we'll follow up and make sure you ladies know what the right steps are so we can get the fundraiser moving for you all. Oh, so we have it as for approval? Okay, perfect. Peter, you ready to take over or do you want? Okay. Any other public participation? Okay. Can I get approval, someone to motion to approve the minutes from the March 24th, 2024 meeting? Yeah.
I actually have it that we should make, and I don't know, Brad, I know you think had a couple. So how do we vote on that? Do we table it? I just don't know if those were incorporated.
You, on the three procedures, you can either approve with the amendments to those areas, or if you feel like there are just too many amendments that require some further communication.
I just have one. I mean, there are a couple spelling things, but the main one is that there's a section that says, anyway, it says about getting the spreadsheet to show the basketball team use funds, and then it says Mr. Cotton asked when the meeting will be set up to go over the spending. And I think that was an individualized meeting, not that a meeting would be scheduled. So I clarify that so that it's clear. So it's minor, but that's the one I wanted to make. But I think we can vote on that. If you want to, I guess I'd propose it. So with that amendment, and then you had it.
So
Motion
to approve the minutes pending the edits that Peter and Brad are going to recommend.
you need to highlight. Oh, you did? Everyone got those? Oh, I didn't know. Okay. All right, great. And that's the proposal.
Oh, Ms. Keller just said that we can't hear you online.
Both of us or just?
She specifically said Peter.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Sorry about that.
So can I get a motion? Can I
Motion.
get a motion to approve the minutes with the changes that Brad sent online and the ones Peter recommended in person?
I'll motion.
Second? All in favor?
I wasn't at the last meeting. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Motion, I couldn't see, I can't see anything online, so.
In
Total
favor.
number of work. Document for. days.
Heads.
8-4, 1 abstention.
Okay.
So what was the count? You got 8-4, 8? Yeah. Approval and 1 abstention.
All right. I haven't missed anything yet, right? Okay. Celebrations for LP. Anyone have any celebrations to share? Again, it has to be, it's only amongst,
George,
it-
for right now in the meeting, this section is just for the people at the tables. There'll be a time later on for people to, from the audience to speak.
Jane has her-
Jane?
I just wanted to take a minute and congratulate the new and the reinstated members of the LSC for the next term.
Thank you. Oh. Any other celebrations?
Oh, go ahead. You go.
Oh, all right. I just wanted to congratulate my my fellow student representatives on their college decisions. Both of them are going to be joining me in DC next year. Jane will be joining me at GW, and then Okoye is going to be down the street at Howard.
Oh my God, that's so
Yeah.
cute. We're gonna take a field trip.
Definitely.
Governmental tour. Congratulations, everybody. That's so exciting. Okay.
Oh, I just wanted to shout out the culture and climate team and the behavioral health team because we started a hallway monitor program, which doesn't sound that cool, but we're just out there making sure the kids are getting to class on time. So it's been our first week and it's been good. So yeah.
I wanted to highlight 2 things. One is the art department has had a bunch of wonderful achievements at the Chicago Expo, and some of you may have seen that Oz Park is redoing the Wizard of Oz playground, and an LP student's artwork is going to be created with a stick your face. I don't know what they call that. You stick your face in the hole and take a picture and pretend you're Dorothy or whatever. So an LP student is painted something, and once that work is done, it's going to be in the park. So that's pretty cool for our students. On the art side, a lot of times people associate Lincoln Park with being a fine and performing arts school, which it absolutely is. And that's why we need to help the auditorium and so on. At the same time, we have a lot of depth in STEM and science. And an example is the following. We had 4 students who published an abstract in the Journal of Biological Chemistry in March, and their what was published is called The Relationship Between Acetylcholinesterase and Acetylcholine and Its Contribution to Alzheimer's Disease. These are 4 students who did that under the guidance of Mr. Kaby, who also helps them to present at professional conferences, which they did for this as well. So, you know, I was pretty surprised. I was not writing anything like this in high school. And so hats off to our students for writing something on an important topic and a very complex topic in a very prominent journal, I learned, by the way. So big shout out to them.
Any other?
In addition to the STEM theme, our math team has been doing really well, especially our freshman level. It's not something that's on the announcements or talked about very often, but this past recent weekend with that wrapping up, that math team season wrapping up, Lincoln Park High School was given like most improved from last season to this season, that award. So kudos to the math team.
That's awesome. What is the math team? But
Athletes.
is it like a competition?
Yeah, they meet once a week, like a club.
Okay.
And then weekends they have competitions.
Really?
Other schools.
I didn't know this. Wow, that's great. Okay, thank you. Sorry to cut the applause, but that was cool. Okay, other celebrations, observations?
Yes, we did.
Oh yeah, report from Japan.
Oh yeah, so I mentioned this at the last LC meeting, but Ms. Lunds and a whole group of teacher chaperones took about 60 Lincoln Park students on a like a 2 week long trip to Japan, which was fantastic over spring break.
Thank you.
Asked. Okay, so let's go ahead with our agenda. So just big picture, we have two big things today. We sort of have a standard agenda each month where we cover subcommittee reports and whatnot. And then there are a couple special topics. Two of the big special topics today are the CIWP, which is Continuous Improvement Work Plan. That's like a 2-year strategic plan for the school. We're required to give an update twice a year for that, and Dr. Steinmiller has an update on that. The other thing is once a year, we have to review and approve a new budget for the next year. And that's going to be the other big topic tonight. So just heads up on that. Our next, that's coming in a minute. Right now, we're going to the budget subcommittee. So I'll turn it over to our chair, Mr. Kessler.
Thank you. So I think we'll tag team this a bit with Laura, Yepes, and myself. We met earlier in the week. I'll run through some meeting notes that was also shared in the committee folders that Angelica put together with all the other LSC members. So thank you, Angelica, for doing that. That's a celebration that we missed. We started walking through some of the presentation that Dr. Steinmiller will be giving today. We didn't review it in terms of approving it out of committee, the budget. So we look forward to that conversation. Again, I'm going to run through here because I don't want to steal any of your spotlight, Dr. Steinmiller, on yours. Some things to keep in mind kind of that we were going through. Laura, Dr. Steinmiller, Ms. Lopez, and I continue to try to take apart what the budget is and try to understand all the different spending areas we have. We're getting closer, but it's a significant amount of tabs and spreadsheets. So if you take a look at, this fun spreadsheet up here, as the tabs start to load, I don't know if they're loaded yet, you'll see that Ms. Lopez has been adding a lot of tabs so that people can start digging in and seeing for themselves. A significant amount of money goes to extended day buckets and goes to sub buckets, for example. So when we think about where the dollars are going that come from internal accounts, you can start to get a sense of where things are. So here are the different buckets. Sorry, the spreadsheet that Dr. Steinmiller just as well. Yeah, that's all right. Well, you were just on the buckets, so I figured, if you go to the other one, that's okay. I can't see where your tabs are, but there's, yeah. Oh, don't worry about it. But anyway, as you go through, you'll see, you'll start to make sense. Well, here we're in student fees, so let's stay there for a second. Oh, here we go. This is I feel like I'm on a surfboard. Okay. So on student fees, if we just hang out here for a second. So one of the decisions of this LSC was to split student fees into two this year. I think the decision was around equity to make sure that we weren't asking all at once in the year for $400. Having two different times where we asked kids to then pay $200 at the beginning of the year and $200 after winter break proved to be a collection difficulty. So my recommendation anyway, as we go through things for the next school year, I won't be on this LSC, but recommendation is going to be to have just one student fee, whatever that dollar amount is, just have one location point. So on here, you'll see this Ms. Lopez put together this chart, which I thought was really helpful. We had 700 students out of a total of 2,063 total students. 700 paid the $200 fee at the beginning of the year. A significant number of those students that didn't pay will probably be eligible for fee waivers. But it's just a way to get a sense. 700 probably is still lower than the amount that could have paid the dollar amount. So you'll see we raised 140,000, and then in semester 2 so far, we've raised 109,000. So I can't recall what we did the year prior, but this is lower than we've had in past years with this experiment of splitting. The dollar amounts remaining in student fees is, I believe, $36,000. As we start to play around with what's remaining for the rest of the school year. Let me continue to go through some notes.
Can I ask a really quick question?
Yeah.
Was an email sent to parents if they needed to pay again or no?
Communication, I think it's letter, but not a direct one, because we were still chasing the semester and waiting for it to reconcile. And now there's like a 2-month lag time. notification to the district. Come to us, but it's actually harder. Last year where we would know exactly where we're. It's an email.
But you know if people have paid or not paid. So couldn't you just send an email saying you have not paid a portion of your student fee, please? Everybody who hasn't paid.
So anybody who's not paid, we're probably better off saying it to everybody. Please check to make sure there aren't any outstanding. Because we have so many, I'm not sure what the poll will look. I'm sure we can pull who hasn't based off of the numbers, link it with their email. So
Yeah, I think that needs to happen.
do that.
I have a question too. I don't know if y'all know, but when does the fee waiver notification go out? Because it would be confusing if someone gets an email saying you owe a fee, but in actuality, they don't have to pay a fee because they have a fee waiver.
So October is actually submitted. Have those been put into the system. Obviously, some people's lives change and it's different. Once you put it in, it creates a district kind of ratio, whether they're approved or not. But it's still kind of ongoing. It's the ones that we're missing, like them over time. That's why you will see during the budget, I will talk about it. Registrars.
Oh, they can't hear you.
Oh, I don't have it tonight. We will be talking later in the budget about a counseling assistant registrar position so we can have all of our records up to date as quickly as possible. We have a lot of people doing the work, so it takes longer. I like to have things as soon as we receive them, put in the system.
But I honestly think that just in the email, we can just add a sentence saying if you are eligible for fee waiver, if you have something submitted or approved, this email doesn't apply to you.
Totally agree.
Okay.
Totally
Yeah,
agree.
that's a good idea.
Yeah, totally agree. Good point.
Things to do.
Yep. Next step.
Okay. There were no significant updates about New Balance in the committee. So wanted to make note so as we continue to follow that. I think Dr. Steinmiller communicated that there'd be another update May 17th. If we can go over to fundraiser approvals, we'll go into that next, and then we'll go into budget transfers afterwards. So we did hear from the STEP team a moment ago. STEP team has a fundraising proposal. Again, this is in the tracker if anyone has their computers open, but their proposed activities around prom proposals and making flyers. The dates would be April 29th through May 16th. And again, the purpose is to try to pay for club uniforms. They think that the selling price per unit will be $5 to $15. They're hoping to raise about $350 from it. That's one. I will go through all three. And then if we have an opportunity, either discuss or we can vote on all three for efficiency purposes. Another one, donations for yearbook student contributors. So that's April 18th to May 6th. And that's just an anticipated hope of raising $500 from donations. And then Pay What You Can Theater Club tickets, May 13th through May 16th. That's the theater club. They're just hoping to raise some theater club funding. And the selling price per unit is $1 to $10. They're hoping to raise $100. So those are the three fundraisers. Is there any discussion we'd like to have on the fundraisers? Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve the three fundraisers that I just described.
Second.
All right. All in favor? Okay. Looks like everybody, if Ted's taking notes on there. So budget transfers. I will just say generally what Laura and I are getting a better understanding from that I started talking about earlier is the amount of dollars that go to pointer lines that specifically get used for overtime and for extended day. When we go through budget transfers each time, you'll see that a lot of the dollars go there and then a decent amount of dollars go to transportation for sports. This really as we start to kind of attack the tabs that everyone sees. So I'm hoping if Dr. Steinmiller has it open, I know I did this a couple months ago. I know I wasn't able to run through the transfers this last meeting, but if you can walk through a bit, I also I'll note on just this spreadsheet, out of the total dollar amounts, which are $33,000 and $33,413 listed in the highlights, $25,580 is for pointer lines. $938 is for OST funds and $6,800 is other things. So as Dr. Simler might run through like cognitive, I'm not familiar with what that is, but just so folks know that out of the 33,000 here, 25,000 is for Pointer Lines, which again goes to funding teachers that are doing things beyond the classroom. All right. The other category, if Dr. Simler can talk to afterwards, I think there is a request, although it didn't show up in here, from Ms. Lopez to move dollars from Chicago Sport and Social Club for various categories. So after you go through here, if we can run through that.
Yeah. For this one, for the most part, these are, you see buckets, when you see like buckets, end of year buckets, sub buckets. As I mentioned before to the LSC, we don't get a full allocation of substitute funds for teachers and substitutes. They have benefit days, being sick or being personal business days. And so as those buckets get emptied, we have to replenish them so that substitutes get paid. That's kind of a natural process. I wish it was fully 100%. It's just not how it is from the district. So that's when you see those buckets, that is the majority of these are sub buckets or just end of the year, teachers working after school. If there's something, if we have, for example, we do our diagnostics that we've been focusing on. We have teachers coming in on Saturday for the diagnostics, they get paid for coming in. That's what this money is. And so that's the majority of this. What you do see at the very top where there's a $20,000 amount, we present everything to the LSC. This is a contractual amount of money. This is a contract. Workload reduction is for our diverse learning teachers. Because they work on IEPs, this amount of money is set aside to do one of two things up to the determination of the teachers. Either they get extended day pay, or they can get substitutes to work on IEPs. They've, the last 4 years, elected to go with extended day pay. And that's where this money is just moving the money that's dropped by the district to put it in extended day pay to pay those teachers. The LSC, if the LSC were to vote, we're presenting it because I think it's important you see where all transactions take place, but this is the purpose of this money and it has to happen no matter what because it's contractual. So hypothetically, if everybody voted no to this, it would still happen because it's part of the contract between CPS and our teachers.
I'll just add one thing also, that when these dollars, if we don't have them, for example, and it goes into the red because the teachers still get paid, there's a high likelihood that CPS trues up the dollars in between kind of June and October. Although we're not quite sure because they haven't done that necessarily. It's an ongoing conversation, but we've got to always try to make sure we move dollars into there.
So that's actually the big picture of this. Is just all, these are just all the lines. It's end of the day. Cognitive, we've actually voted and approved to pay for Cognitive at a previous meeting, but this is where Miss Lopez has moved it out of certain lines to pay for Cognitive. It's something that was for our IB classes, presented that before. And then you have your OST. And so that's the majority of what these funds are about right here.
Miss Kaler showed a hand up.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Steinmiller, can you clarify about the IEP workload reduction? You said that that was contractual for them. Maybe I misheard you, that it's contractual for them to get extended pay because they have IEPs?
Because, yes.
Oh, okay. So if they have some, can you explain that? I didn't know that if you are a diverse learner teacher, one of those responsibilities is doing those IEPs. So it's in our contract that they get extended time if they have so many?
No. Diverse learning teachers are required in part of their job description to make IEPs and support students on their caseload. Part of the CTU agreement was to have funds set aside titled workload reduction to help compensate. I'm not saying it's enough money, but to be able to offset some of that being as paperwork for our diverse learning teachers as it is a requirement of their job. It is not required to be extended day pay. It could also be utilized as sub coverage as an alternative. So you are given an allocation of the lump sum You work with the LBS 1 teachers to make a determination whether they want substitute coverage or extended day pay. It's divided then up equally to all of those teachers. It's been like that for the last 4+ years.
Okay, I really wasn't aware of that. So that's only for the diverse learner teachers. It's not for any other teachers with a workload.
Correct. It is for those who are coded into LBS 1, a district
Okay.
quota positions.
Great, thank you.
Should we do that? Should we do this vote first?
I think,
You
yeah,
can
let's do
Steinmiller?
that. And then
Okay. So I'll make a motion to approve the budget transfers that Dr. Steinmiller just described. All in favor? Okay. No.
exception.
He's abstaining.
Yeah,
I'm abstaining too.
Yeah.
Part of the PSAT.
Yeah.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
I missed. Yeah.
So Angelica abstention and Dave Cotton's abstention. And then Ms. Kaler saying that she can't hear Dave when he speaks. Yeah, because there's no microphone.
I abstain.
Okay. One other area that I can introduce within Dr. Steinmiller, if you can walk through. One of the tabs that's been added this time, we've had a rentals tab in the past. Ms. Lopez added a rental lines transfer in and out tab. Again, I just always want to promote this spreadsheet because I think it's really helpful. The Chicago Sport and Social, you can get a sense inside of here that throughout this past year, from August 14th until this past week or so, they've given us $117,000 to use the facilities. So when we talk about the dollars that come in from a rental line, $117,000 from Chicago Sport and Social, Ms. Lopez and Dr. Steinmiller are recommending out of the $100,000 remaining in there, because we've used $16,000 or so already, $100,391 out of that $100,000. They want to transfer funds of $82,860 out of the dollars right now. So there's $100,000 remaining. They want to transfer $82,000 and some dollars out of it. They'd like to transfer $40K for filling in a substitute bucket position pointer line. Another $7,860, so $7,860 for another substitute benefit pointer line, and then $20,000 for athletic bus line. And lastly, sorry, was missing that, $15,000 for extended day. So it's about $63,000 for different, extended day and substitute purposes, and then $20,000 for athletic bus line. I know I want to do this separately because we've had a lot of discussion about athletic bus, supports throughout this LSC. And before I hand it over, if Dr. Steinmiller has comments on it, I just want to highlight there's a transportation tab now inside the spreadsheet that, it's someone's emails up there now. You were helping with, the list. Thank you. On the transportation tab, it will show the total dollars that we've spent on transportation so far this year. So far this year, we've spent $56,563 on sports transportation. And we've spent $19,000 on other transportation. So things, let's say, for field trips. So there's a request. There's been $56,563 spent so far this year, and there's a request for a $20,000 additional move to athletic bus line. So Dr. Steinmiller, thank you. Dr. Steinmiller is showing the tab that's on transportation. And there's another tab. We don't have to show it right now, but as you go through, you can start to try to piece together. There's a tab that shows all the POs. You can piece together, what sports, let's say, the individual spend was on, but it just takes a little bit of work. We haven't gone through it all so far. Thank you, Dr. Steinmiller. But we're collecting all the information there. We just need a little bit more time to number crunch.
And going back to this, the 82,000, this is again substitutes because we need to have substitutes for the remainder of the school year. The 15,000 extended day pay is to make sure that once school lets out, that our programmer is able to continue doing the programming because they are 39.6 week employees. And so for programming to take place in the summer, you have to have paper, and that's what this money is for. That also includes any counselors that are helping with enrollment, because again, we have to have people here to enroll students over the course of the summer. And that's what this money is leading up to June, end of June, because July 1st will be an entire new fiscal year in which we would have to reopen buckets again.
I have a question. Why can we not, or as you all are planning for next year, is this part of it, allocate the Chicago Sport and Social money for sport? And just, that's like sort of extra money that we have for when we have kids coming and needing uniforms, things like that, that is money coming in from sports. So why can't it be allocated to sports?
We can. We just need a vote. That's the purpose of that fund, of that rental.
Well, there's a little complication with that too, though. The way that we receive funds for the Chicago Sports Social comes at us randomly. So we don't know when we're going to be receiving those funds. So we're kind of always going to be kind of either playing catch up or pulling from another source in the meantime.
Do we know about, is it the same amount every year?
We're expanding. It depends on the hours. So we've actually expanded to Sundays now, so we get more money. So it is an increase, but that's it. It's not like we get a front check of 118 and then we're set. It rolls, and then there's that. That's a really good comment.
And I was gonna add, like, as what we've been trying to do with Dr. Steinmiller's support and Ms. Lopez's support is figure out exactly, like, how much are we spending out of the non-operating funds we get for different things. And, you know, let's say $350,000 or so goes to extended day and overtime. You know, when we start taking a look, again, I'm estimating right now because we're still crunching these numbers. So if 350,000 or so goes there, and then, you know, Dr. Steinmiller has been getting requests from department heads, you know, to what we've worked on as a committee to try to get a sense from department heads what they want to spend going to next year. That's amounted to 150,000.
Mm-hmm.
And so between, you know, paying faculty for extended day and for subs, and then, you know, getting supplies for departments, that's $500,000. Right. And so, like, we know that when we talk about student fees, right, we've raised, you know, $300,000 or so. We haven't liked the idea of trying to raise student fees or try to charge a lot of student fees in the past. I know we've struggled with that as an LSC. Between student fees and then the rentals, and then occasional gifts and, you know, grants, et cetera. And it's things that Dr. Simon might talk about, I'm not sure today, but from the internal account side, we just have to make sure that we can afford extended day and sub, and we have to make sure we can afford what's needed in the classrooms. And then whatever we can do beyond that, we do. So this is, again, like the work that Laura and I committed to trying to do on behalf of the LSC is what we're describing right here. We're just not complete in it. But in the meantime, if you all want to, you know, do a lot of fun homework, you can take a look through all the tabs that we're looking at.
I have a question. It's my understanding that the dances are a fundraiser for sports transportation, right? So is there still not enough money? And then also, I know the theater folks
I don't
here
think that's the
often,
case though.
but it is for winter formal, which we didn't raise a
And
little.
homecoming.
I think,
Yeah,
the dollars have been used for sports transportation. I don't know if
Right,
that
but-
was the intended.
Yeah,
purpose
that's
of
my
it.
question. So the money has gone to sports.
I think it's been used for that, but that's not the purpose of those.
No, but in the fundraising form, it says all the money raised is going to go to sports transportation. Right. So I guess my question is, again, the theater folks are here often. I'm not a lobbyist for theater at all, but I'm wondering why we don't, you know, also think about them when we're trying to spend money. You know, because the auditorium is in shambles, and I know I was talking to a few folks who need lights that are like $1,000. It's not that expensive, so. Just thinking, I'm just wondering why we're putting every fundraiser is for sports and then all this money for sports, you know.
Yeah, lights for the auditorium were
Questions?
$500,000.
Well, I talked to Fieri and he said they would be happy with some lights that cost like $2,000, you know?
Yeah, I think that I think the LSC, and I'm not sure whether it's right now with the $20,000 because there's probably kids that are already expecting those buses. But I personally, you know, from the work in the budget committee, I know I've been advocating to Dr. Simon as well that we focus on like performing arts because we're a performing arts school. We focus on IB, you know, and I think that category of whether we're going to fund sports buses, I'd rather fund other areas, but it's something I think the LSC needs to decide. And I think
Or even it out, right? Or like do some participatory budgeting where people can vote and like, how we want to allocate funds,
Can I make a comment? Somebody raised the idea of taking like a year with no buses for sports, which would save a lot of money and would, build up quite a bit of money for, whatever, either for sports teams to get some baseline equipment, or, you could use that money for theater as well. Personally, I feel like sports could probably get their own transportation for 1 year. I know for the track team, like this year we have like 80 kids on the team, and we've had 3, maybe 4 buses not show up on us, and everybody still gets to the meets. So I think if that was something that was anticipated in advance, it doesn't seem like it's that hard to get parents to volunteer. And a lot of parents have SUVs and, could get everybody to the events, and a lot of the stuff's in the city anyway. So there's public transportation, and, just if everybody's prepared in advance, I don't think that they have a problem getting there. So it's definitely a good idea. I think somebody mentioned that maybe last meeting, that maybe we should try something like that.
Yeah, I've been a part of sports teams in the past that have relied entirely on public transportation for meetings, and we haven't had any issues with that in the past. So I think that's definitely something that should be explored.
I'll add that I know that I'd originally commented that I wanted to see if the budget committee could produce this kind of like analysis even more in depth by this meeting. We weren't able to achieve it because of obviously budgets coming out and pulling on Ms. Lopez's time a lot. I will say, like, what I'm unsure of right now is whether those dollars, even if they're saved, would get cushioned or not for other purposes because of how dollars are changing over next year. And I know we want to get to Dr. Steinmiller's presentation, but that's why I wanted to keep it out there that just from department heads' requests at that $150,000 mark of supplies, and then the $300,000+ for if we have the same kind of substitute scenario next year and benefit pointer line extended day, we have to make sure we can fund that, right? That 500,000 plus. And so as we look, again, this is something that we wanted to have present for today. I just don't have greater detail, but we wanted to take a look at that. And then plus, are there other things that we have to pay for? If there's facility improvements that we have to pay for that we don't think CPS will, right? That's still a moving target, but if there's elements like that, do we then prioritize that first? Or do we prioritize other things? So this is, again, on all those things that are not the operating budget or not 115, which comes in here. So it's a discussion we need to have as an LSC. But I highlight it right now because $20,000 of this is for transportation, in the transfer. So, but Dr. Steinmiller, if on the 20,000, is that something that's already been committed to? Already been
this is
scheduled?
for, one of the challenges by members of the LLC was to make sure that we had buses allocated for our spring sports. This is to cover that cost. So we have the buses lined up. We have purchase orders ready to go. And this is the money to pay for it. So, yeah.
Brad, just a couple of quick questions from what you presented so far, and thanks you and Laura for all the work to get here. One, with the fees from the student fees, the once a year versus twice a year, you said we noticed a drop. What did I couldn't see the slide. What did we collect last year in total versus what we've gotten so far this year?
We don't have it readily available, but
Yeah, I would say it was over 400. I know we had over 4. I believe it was, let me not say I know. I believe it was over $400,000 plus. So we had a better percentage of people just paying it all at once.
Okay.
And then we were able to then do direct follow-up just for one payment. Because right now we're going to be chasing 2 payments, payment 1 and payment 2. And last year we were able to send numerous communications just about that one payment. So this makes it more difficult to do a more like consistent follow-up.
Okay. So we got $400,000 last year, and this year it's like what? 250,000.
Right?
212.
Is that
Okay.
it's 250,000.
250. Okay. So we're not done with the year yet, but I hear it's $150,000 less, which is gigantic. It's more than we spend in transportation in total. So as we think about trade-offs, what?
Last year was 450. Sorry.
Oh, 450. Okay. So, so it's huge money. I agree we need to think about priorities and trade-offs. I think a higher priority than that
is maximizing money that is due to the school. You know, now I recognize some people have waivers and all that, but we have to go for that. And so I just, you know, you're working on it, but I want to reiterate, like, that should be a number one thing, that we never want to leave money on the table because it's a gigantic amount. It's gigantic. Imagine having hundreds of families just write $400 checks. That's a lot. So that's one. The second is with substitutes. Do we pay more? So if there are more teachers out, we need more to pay extra money for substitutes.
Yes.
Okay. So is that like a flat rate? Like, I don't know, do teachers sort of maximize whatever their out of school PTO is or whatever?
I mean, it kind of depends on the scenario. I mean, each teacher has they have paid benefits, and those benefits are a part of the salary, actually our budgeting. So when I talk about budgeting of each position, you pay a salary and then about anywhere between $30,000 to $40,000 in benefits. A percentage of that goes to substitutes, but not all of it goes to substitutes for that year, because teachers can hold over their days. You could have 40, I believe, I may have changed, I don't quote me, but 40 days of sick days, and you can use all 40 of them in 1 year. And so if we're only given an allotment for like 60% of 10, then just one teacher you could run 34. And that's their benefit days. They've earned them. It's part of their contract and how it should be set up. But if it's about $170, $180 a sub a day, that's one person who could potentially have 34 days, 34 subs. I mean, it with over 200 employees, that can become pretty quickly. But actually only 100, as we think of the 130, 140 people actually where you'll have subs, our SICAs and our teachers, but those can rack up, and you're required to use 10 sick days before going into a leave. So somebody who goes into a leave that there's 10 days they're required to use. And then when they're in the leave, until you hire somebody as a TAT, you're hiring a sub for them. So that's how you end up accruing things.
Seems like an unusual incentive. Okay. So it's a benefit, and is it for the sub days, are all of those dollars given to us by CPS to allocate?
We do not get enough money to cover all the sub days.
Really?
Yes.
So CPS is promising a benefit to teachers that they're not subsidizing.
Well, because the thing is that you can roll over your time.
Yeah, but is
right?
that the only reason? It's just a rollover?
And also, they only give us, what did you say, 60%?
Certain percentage, because to be honest, most teachers don't like I would, and I don't know the exact, let's say 60% of it. So if I have 10 sick days, because most teachers, to be honest, don't use all their sick days in 1 year. So that money then would just sit in an account in our student-based budgeting, and then the district would swipe it up at the end of the year anyway. So that's why they're predicting how much that teacher is going to use. But I've since COVID, for example, teachers didn't use an entire year. So they had a banked year of benefit days, and their grant, you can't go more than 40. I think it's 40 is the number. So if I'm a teacher and I hit 40, I have to start using my benefit days or I lose them. And so people have a lot of banked days, more than normal. And so people need to use their days or they're going to lose their days. And so, yeah, if I knew I was a teacher that I'm already at 40, I've got my 10 and I've got to start spending down my 10, I need to schedule a doctor's appointment. I'm going to have to use my days or I lose them. And that's again, they are contractual benefits for our teachers that they should take advantage of, but it adds an extra burden on paying.
Thank you. Okay, those are my questions. I feel like we need to maximize the money that's owed to us, and then the sub is just an unfortunate timing thing that we have to pay for that benefit. Okay.
But I move to approve the transferring of the funds from our Chicago Sports and Social to pay for those sub lines, transportation, and then extended day pay.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Can we see online? Can you
Oh, yeah, sorry. I mean, shrink.
Staying on transportation, please.
Okay,
hear
all
me?
those. I'm sorry, Sasha?
Sustain on transportation things.
Could you repeat that?
If we talk about the transportation things, or I'm getting it wrong.
Oh, no, there are a series of things that,
Okay, I'm in general, I'm for it, but transportation, I don't think it's needed.
okay, so let's do a vote again.
Supporting this, yes.
Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay.
Jane's got a hand up too.
Jane, 10. Okay. Ted and Miss Kaler, can't see your votes. Sorry.
Well, that was 4, so then next would be all opposed.
Okay, all opposed? 1.
And Ms. Kayla,
Okay, and Miss Kaler? Okay,
then abstain.
and abstain. Okay,
1 abstain.
1 abstain. Okay. All right, so motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, that's it for the budget committee.
Oh, I had a quick question I asked y'all, but I know it was like last minute. How are the dances paid for? How are the venues paid for? I know it's a fundraiser, but initially, how is the money? How do they get the money? Like White Sox Stadium for prom?
Yeah, our understanding is that it's coming from Miss Lopez in these various lines. So the school will front the dollars. It's my understanding.
But you create a
But from
purchase.
what budget line? I guess what, yeah.
From the fee. So
Student fees.
So we anticipate, not student fees, the student payment for their ticket. So for example, why we are at Sox Park, students wanted to do it at the Hyatt. It was going to cost $60,000. There's 430 seniors. They can't afford a $60,000 thing and pay, I think it was $150 for prom, for example. Prom's $150. They can't afford $60,000 venue. And so what happens is we anticipate based off of trends that we will have 370 students who will pay that amount of money. We actually were able to knock it down to 125 by doing Sox Park. So what you do is you create basically a purchase order that we're doing this event, we're doing our prom. We do a purchase order saying this is how much it is going to cost. Students pay their fees, then or pay the ticket, which is the cost. And then for prom, it covers it. So for like homecoming, we know exactly like we're shooting for like $40,000 event. $50. We know we're going to cover it because we have 1,600 show up. We also said as a fundraiser, but once that money then drops, once the event takes place, then the money from all the students' payments for their ticket that covers the cost.
I guess that's where I'm confused, and because those dances were billed as a fundraiser for sports, and then also this is the whole thing, but with like New Balance too, there's confusion around whether the LSC has to approve POs, and I guess you're saying we don't, and I guess that's the big confusion with everyone's confused.
So when we voted, like for example, we voted as an LSC to approve the homecoming dance. We said it that because we knew that at $50 we would make money on it. We knew that would go over it. And for us to try to actually make it just be specific to it, we'd run the risk of losing money. So what we have to anticipate is that it's a fundraiser, and then we set aside any money that is then made from this will go to whatever purpose. And the LSC has already done 2 things. 1, approve the event. Therefore, they've approved the purchase order and they've approved the process to pay for it, because that's what the intent of it is. We're hosting an event. It's at the Hyatt. Here's what it looks like. You've approved it. And so you don't go back and say, hey, I know you approved this event. We've raised the money. We just had it, we're about to have it. And then the LLC goes, well, I don't approve actually the purchase order to pay for it. That doesn't make sense. You've already approved the fundraising event that it will be taking place, and therefore the money associated would be allocated to do the purchase orders. And so once you approve that event, you've approved all the purchase orders along with it. So that's,
I think when we approved these back in July, personally, I think that like the next fundraising requests that come through for these should say how many dollars we have to send the place prior. Because I think what we did in the past as an LSC was just say, yes, we approve. And I think what you're saying, I understand, which is that like by us saying, yes, we approve fundraising for this, we should have assumed that we had to give money ahead of time to the formal.
and we don't get money ahead of time. We get there's no money given ahead of time.
Oh, okay.
So there's no down payments for the House of Blues White Sox Stadium? That's shocking to me.
We have a contract. So that's what a purchase order is. They don't receive any payment until They don't receive any payment until the event or whatever is receipted. That's why with any purchase, we make purchase orders on. That's why there's a multiple step process. You have a purchase order. That's an agreement between you and the vendor. That's why they have to be vendors, because they're agreeing to this process, that they will get paid once services are rendered or the product is receipted. And that's why we have to, that's why when we have our documents, we say teachers don't go grab the boxes, because Miss Trochet has to get that document. She has to submit it back to CPS, because if she doesn't send that document, then the vendor does not get paid. So they don't get money up front. It is an agreement they will eventually be paid. And so that's what a purchase order is. And so when we do an event like at the Hyatt, we are saying, we're going to host an event with you. Students are going to pay for tickets. Once we get them, once the event is over, the money from the tickets, which we've received, will then pay that purchase order. So there's no front loading of any money from any other account or any other group. In fact, you could have $0 because you haven't collected tickets yet. But it's, again, that's why they're vendors, and that's why it's a purchase order. That's like the process.
So I guess what was the cost of the purchase order then for White Sox Stadium?
I'll just, I miss
Ballpark.
48. Thank you.
And
48.
just say, I know everyone's going to go to prom, right? But if they don't, where would the money come from? Because I know we lost money on dances in the past.
Restate your question.
Where does the money come from if you don't sell enough tickets?
Well, that's why we're doing it at Sox Park to do 48, so we sell enough tickets. Like,
I know, but my question is, where does
if
the money
all the
come from if
students
you
just
don't?
said, "Hey, we
lost money on dances before, right? So
yeah,
where's it coming from?
I mean, I know when we were coming out of COVID, we overextended. It's a good question. Like, then it would come out of our internal accounts or our fees. Like, that's how we would still have to pay it. But that's also why we're being very intentional about why we're doing White Sox Park, because we can cut that 48 down. Like, that 48 could become 30. So if only 200 kids want to go to prom, I'm sorry, but their meals are going to look very different than the meals they think they're getting. Like, it's right now, I think it's like steak. It's super awesome. But if we don't have the number for it, then we can at Sox Park cut it down so that we don't have a loss. So that's why we intentionally are using them as a venue.
Is Dr. Simler, do you have a concern if, like, for next year for the July votes, if you say that, like, there will be a purchase order opened up for this dollar amount not to exceed $50,000 or whatnot? Because I think that's a recommendation that Angelica, I think it's a good recommendation.
So I'll say, if you want to say whatever that is, once you vote for a fundraiser, you as an LSC are approving it. That's it.
Purchase order. I think that's the confusion.
So understand it's an event. Anytime you're asking for money from anybody, there's two things that can happen. There's a fee in which you're taking it and absorbing it. There is a payment that comes in which there will be an excess of what you anticipate. Therefore, any of that dollar amount beyond that event is a fundraiser. And that money then has to be delegated to what you want to use it on. So, for example, every fundraiser that's been presented to you this year, there has been a cost to put it forward. It's been like they're trying to predict how much they're going to make on top of it, but there's a cost to do these events. And so that's normal. Like, this isn't like, so
I think the suggestion I'm hearing, Ms. Palvita, is, hey, when we have to vote for stuff in the future, like a dance, instead of just saying, do you approve us having a dance, say, approve us having a dance, and this is going to be the cost of the venue, so that we're aware of it while we vote. Is that right?
Yeah, I would agree. And also, let's put a
deal.
limit, just because it's a little excessive,
if you put a limit, I'm telling you, then you've all cut off a certain amount of so our students trying to plan this. Our students are a part of it. So if anybody on this LSC wants to object to the limit, they need to be part of the planning committee, because that's not fair. What you're doing is you're putting restraints on a group that's trying to organize on their time at the end of the day, and you're not a part of the process. And that's very frustrating. And so our kids plan these events. They're the ones organizing it. They're after school every day putting us together. They want it to be at the Hyatt. They want it to be at Sox Park, or they want it to be. And so if we want to have it in our gym, we can have it in our gym. But be a part of that planning committee if you're going to cut this out from underneath them in their own planning. Because we talk here about putting limits, but we're not a part of the planning process. And that's very frustrating.
Dr. Steinmiller, but everyone should have budgets, right? If there was, budgets are, I mean, it's okay, like Tom was just saying, to like give the students a budget and work around with the budget.
Most events in the city of Chicago, most spaces, the cheapest we've found is Sox Park at $39,000. That is the cheapest, and we can only host so many students. If we want to have small events where only our seniors go to, then we can limit to $50,000, because Hyatt is one of the only places we can fit 1,700 people at. And it is going to cost us $60,000. I'm telling you right now, if you want to know the cost of it, for our students to participate in a homecoming event, it's going to cost $60,000. You put a 50, we might as well not have homecoming.
Yeah, I want to just clarify. I don't think right now that the discussion on the table is to not have these. It's just like, hey, when we vote, let's include the amount so we know. It's an awareness item for me. So I'd like to move forward unless there's any other comments.
I think Kayla. Yeah.
We have a lot of things to cover.
I think the frustration is in July, we just make this high level things that say, oh, we're going to vote, we're going to have this thing. And we have absolutely no details. It's like the clubs have a form they got to fill out with details they have to provide of to, what the tickets are, whatever it is that they're selling. So, they have to provide some level of detail. Whereas here we're in July approving a bunch of things, kind of like a blanket check. And, I think that's where the frustration is between, yes, I agree with, we should have a prom, but then, the dollar amount is a different thing. I think that's the
I think
frustration between the two items.
I think that's fair. Yeah. And I think that, I think it's also a great suggestion because it was on us to raise our hand and ask how much it was. We didn't do that, but now we're saying, hey, we should be asking, and we are. And so I think going forward, it's a good procedural suggestion that when we're voting, we kind of know how much is involved.
And also on the, as we're adding sheets to this Excel sheet, I think we need to add the sheets for the different dances that we've had to have that level of disclosure.
We have. I mean, that's the thing, is this isn't new. And that's why I think we have been presenting this. We have been telling you the cost. It's been in a document that I've been sharing with you every single month. Every month I've been sharing this document. Every month you have access to it. And so this is how much things cost. And that is and I think we're getting so many things. What I'm hearing is that we're not understanding various things. We're assuming that student fees are paying for this. They're not. This was a separate thing that was proposed to the LSC about an event they were hosting, which is, I'm going to stick with homecoming. Homecoming was a very specific event. We proposed it. We presented it to the LSC for approval that we're going to have this event. We plan to do it at Hyatt. That's how we're looking at doing this event. Any money that goes beyond what we anticipate will cover the cost. Any money, even if it was $500 to $20,000, would go to transportation. Because in the end, the purpose wasn't fundraising. It was a homecoming event for our students. And so those are in our document. They've been in here, but they are not student fees. It was a ticket to go to an event that goes through a whole different process. And so I know we've gone off topic of our agendas, so I apologize for that.
Let's move us forward. So, Ms. Kaler.
Okay, I know, we need to talk about this for a second. And I think Angelica was unfairly, I'm not going to say attacked, that's a little too strong of a word. Nobody is suggesting that we stop the students from planning and getting excited. I think that her point is that there needs to be, adults here, and that's the administration that has a budget and says, this is what we can do and this is what we can't do. And so it's not about necessarily the money beyond what was made, but I think that needs to be discussed of where it should go. But more importantly, it's the money that was not made and it put us into a deficit. And when she asked, where does that money come from? Then there was pushback. And I think that that's a fair, where does that money come from? Who makes that up? Who does that hurt? Because it hurts the entire school. So if proper budgeting doesn't happen, then that's mismanagement. That's all I think she was saying. And then the second, right? And so that's a fair question. Second is, I just want to be clear that in July or in September, the New Balance was not a fundraiser. We did not vote for a fundraiser. So if that money was put into a PO without going through the LSC, and this is a question, then wasn't that done improperly because it wasn't a fundraiser and then it has to go through the LSC for approval?
Okay, Laura, did you have a comment you wanted to make?
I have a comment. I don't know if someone wants to answer Ms. Kaler's question. I'm just asking that moving forward, if there are budgeting issues, that those go to the budgeting committee and get discussed there. And again, I'm not on the budgeting committee, but I trust that the people who are doing the work and doing this and that they'll present back. We are spending hours upon hours in these meetings going over the same things over and over and over again. And it is not productive to move things forward. And it's extremely frustrating. I know Laura and Brad seem to have worked very, very diligently and hard with Ms. Lopez to get things in order. And I think these are all good points and all good questions. But again, I feel like that is why we have subcommittees to hash all of this out and then be presented at the committee at the LSC meeting, not to spend what's now been almost an hour and a half talking about stuff that's could have been and should have been hashed out in the budget subcommittee meeting.
I've emailed multiple times.
In the budget, we did hash it out in the budget subcommittee. I also think that it's fair for the public to know where public dollars go. So I disagree.
And the budget committee is is an open committee that anybody can go to if they're interested.
It's just now getting very open though, let's be honest. This is like the first month that everyone knows when the budget committee meets. It's been very secretive until I would say I made a big push to make this more public.
I would say it hasn't been
I don't
purposely
think it's
secretive. I think this is not something that was done under the rug to
No, I
hide
know that,
things.
but a lot of us-
There have not been systems and structures I don't even want to take those words. There have not been things in place to appropriately look at these things. I think it's great that we are. I think we are all in agreement that things need to be done differently, but we are talking about the same thing month after month after month with seemingly no ability to move forward from it. And it is halting us from being able to do anything. We are literally handcuffing ourselves at this point.
I mean, I think public discourse is important, you know, especially when this has never been very transparent until the last few weeks. The budget committee.
Well, Angelica, I have no problem having a conversation about it, but the insinuation is that it's not being managed. And I want to say that it is being managed. There are many different opinions about events, fundraisers, right? And we're all welcome to hear everyone's different perspective on how we should do this next year. And that should be a discussion, but quite honestly, it's already been decided. So, and there has been no money lost when it came to the winter formal or for homecoming. That is within the spreadsheet.
Yeah, I would just ask
I thought-
this.
okay.
If moving, so we can move forward.
Yeah, let's
If
close this out.
anybody would like to sit one-on-one with me to walk through this document, because this document, you actually don't see the numerous tabs, all the data that is shared with you. And so if you don't understand it or you want me to walk through it one-on-one with you, I am more than happy because you really can see that's all here. We have been, this is as transparent as you can get. And it's been through feedback working with our LSC. So if anybody wants, and I've put this request out now, this will be I think my third LSC meeting and nobody's taken me up on it. If you would like to sit with me one-on-one to talk about any of this, please set that up. Talk to Ms. Trochet. She has my calendar. She will set up a meeting. I will walk through this with you. I will spend an hour or two, whatever it is that you need to understand it. But every month we've been presenting things that you actually don't have to vote on. It's not, but all of them are here. That's why I just was sharing like this tab, like I will help you through. I'll make sure it makes sense, but it's all there. And so every month I share it with you. I'm happy to walk through with everybody to make sure that you clearly know what's going on. I need to emphasize.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Steinmiller. We're gonna move forward now.
Just one last thing. I actually like your idea of like, the budget committee doing things and then bringing it from committee to here for the efficiency of the meetings. I think it might be a good idea to have the budget subcommittee meetings that happen at a time that like everyone can come, right? For example, I'm on the budget subcommittee meeting and I couldn't attend on Tuesday because of proctoring a PSAT. Earlier this year, we had to ask for like the standing meeting time to change to a time where I had no classes to teach. So I actually really do like that idea. And if that's going to be the case, where a lot of stuff is more specifically discussed, then perhaps we should reconsider the time of these open meetings to make sure that they're more inclusive for everyone.
I'll just say that like the time often for the folks, especially me, would be 7 a.m., 6:30 a.m. or 6 p.m., or 7 p.m.
That it's an easy
Oh, no, but I'm just saying that like, no, but I like in the efforts, I'll tell you that by all means, all the committees I've been on, I've been incredibly accommodating to meet with folks inside the school. My times are, believe me, are not times that anyone wants to meet inside the school here, nor will it be open. But yes, I mean, next year, certainly, I mean, Laura, whomever might be chairing this budget, I'd say, yeah, I mean, give it the best shot.
The last comment I'd like to make is I have been to a couple of the budget meetings during the, that are during the school day. And there's always a cutoff time because we don't have enough time to continue talking about the items. So it's unfair to come back here and say, okay, you can't talk about it here because we didn't, you had sufficient time during the budget meeting to discuss it there, which is not true.
Problem, and we need to address that. So it sounds like the people who are on the budget committee are going to address that. Do we have to vote on something?
And I would ask if people feel that they're not getting what's needed out of those meetings to raise that, because to have a bad experience and then come here and say, well, that was bad without telling that group it's bad, then that's on us. So we need to own our part in this thing too, all of us. Okay. Let's move forward. We have a lot to cover still. I know some people have to leave early for other commitment, or not early, but I have to leave at 6:30 and I'd like to get through as much as we can. We now have Friends of Lincoln Park, and I think our president, Ms. Sabrina Spitznagel, is here for a live update. So if you could come on down to the magic podium. Thank you for your committee report.
Good to be here. Thanks for having us. Thanks for all you guys are doing. Congrats again to the seniors. Very exciting, and to everyone who's recently elected. Thanks for all you do. And on that note, also, I have a senior, as most of you know, so this will probably be one of my last meetings here. I wanted to introduce Colin O'Brien, who's going to be the next president next year. Super excited.
Yeah, hi, everybody. I also have a senior this year, but I also have an incoming freshman. So you'll be seeing my face for 4 years. Look forward to working with everyone. I will be taking over Sabrina's place, being the person sitting in the back giving the report for Friends of Lincoln Park. We are having a fantastic soiree on Saturday.
Yes, that's the big news. We hope to see you on
And
Saturday.
we had a live auction, great stuff, and the money.
Yep, that's the biggest news. And we've, Peter, you got your yard sign. We had some yard sign sales.
Thank you.
And
Sandra's got the two.
And you got yours? Yay. Sorry about that mix up.
Apologize.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, very exciting. And I think those are our basic updates. There's going to be a lot of open positions, so spread the word if anyone's.
Let them know. High school goes by pretty fast. And be involved with their kids.
So just to clarify for a second on that, when you say open positions, what for what, doing what at a high level, just so we know?
We need a communications. We need somebody to help with the open house. One volunteer as her daughter's graduated, so usually it's two. We need one other person to help with social media.
DEI, and community fundraising. Sorry.
Yeah.
What your mom does.
Yeah.
Okay.
We could also use another person who might like help with numbers, because we have a fantastic person treasurer, but she's busy and she works really hard.
Okay,
And,
thank you.
I'm sure the auction, like for in the spring, what we're doing right now, there's always, I mean, there's tons of
Okay,
But-
great.
And we meet every.
Yeah, we
third
just
Tuesday.
met this last Tuesday,
Same
so
room.
May
Orders.
20, May's the third Tuesday
Yeah.
in May is our next meeting. Yeah, any other, and we'll be helping out on May 1st for the
We'll be here
admitted
May 1st.
students day and with spirit wear. Hopefully that was good.
Well, thank you, Sabrina, for all of your service.
Sure.
And Colin O'Brien, welcome to the party officially, although you're a veteran with senior, but
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Yeah, and he'll be here the first, whatever, to get the approval for our funds, where we probably don't need POs, but.
Okay.
I'll be here with the list.
Yeah.
I also want to say thank you. They've done more than just raise funds. One, they show up in person for a lot of these events and things that we do as a school, which is really appreciated. But even have been allocating other donations. I mean, for example, like even a ice machine, and have been helping with some of the facilities supports and needs, and just getting hotel rooms at a cheaper price for some of our school events. So it's not just the fundraising, but actually utilizing the people power that they have, and it's just an impressive group. So I just want to say thank you.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Yeah, hopefully we're doing the bathrooms.
Yes.
At least a
All right.
little facelift.
Oh,
Like two.
yeah. All right.
Very nice, but not operating, but it's currently your professional organization is going to be able to.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Dr. Steinmiller, I think we're moving over to the principal's report right now.
Awesome. I will kind of, and we've been talking about quite a few other things, but okay. Let me get this going and I'll go quick.
Just one point of order. Do we have any other votes we have to do in the agenda at any point? Just so we can be cognizant of time.
Once we lose quota, that the LSC meeting needs to end.
Oh, I thought we just can't
can
hold any
still
votes.
meet.
I can do a presentation on budget to anybody in a public setting. I'd be
Yeah.
happy to do that,
Yeah.
but formally, we no longer have.
Forms eight.
Yeah,
Yep,
and
we're
so I know
allowed.
Amy has a 6:30. So is there any other votes?
I don't.
Peter has a 6:30.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
no, I will just make one announcement on voting. Miss Giannopoulos wrote us last night about the LSC. They wanted us to add an agenda item to vote on certifying the elections results. We do need to do that, but we can't do it today because that was inside the 48-hour window. We are likely going to have, as Dr. Steinmiller's communicated, a separate budget meeting in a week or two. And so at that meeting, we'll take 2 minutes to just vote and certify the results of the election. So just a heads up, that will be coming. But for tonight, I don't think we have any other.
We do need to determine, so I have the CIWP overview to go with, and then the budget. So the two major items to go over. We, on the week of the 29th, do need to approve the budget. I'm going to try to give as much as a scope as I can right now, but then on that day, a final overview and we vote. It doesn't have to be a long meeting. It could, but by giving this meeting here gives us time to, if you have any questions, or if you want to meet with me one-on-one, or if you have questions to submit for us to reflect on, this gives us time. That was a feedback I got from last year, was the turnaround was so quick. They gave us, I think, only like two to 3 weeks. It was a very short turnaround and it included spring break. And so this was 4 weeks, it's longer. So I want to present it today with the intent in 2 weeks, I can then solidify the final parts of the budget with recommendations and feedback from you, and then we vote on it. So I'm not expecting a vote at the end of this, but we do need to set that date. If we do not set it like that, if we don't have quorum and we can't vote on it, it eventually would, we have to make sure it gets approved by us, or else it gets bumped to the district. And so that's just what I'm saying is we need to set that date, be it the 29th or the 30th. Or that's really the time that needs to be done.
Okay. Okay, so I don't think there are any more votes, Brad, to answer your question. All right, so over to you, Dr. Steinmiller.
All right. One of the big, something that's general info, I'll be short on it. We've been working really hard to get the rollout of our cell phone policy. We've been very excited about that. And I'm actually extremely proud of our teachers and our students and our custodians and our engineers for just getting everything installed, the buy-in in the community, and our students are just really meeting expectations, as we know they will. So really proud of everybody, and people are getting really creative with it. Even South teachers are doing charging stations, and they've figured out how to get cords working in. But we'll get feedback. A survey will happen at the end of this week from Mr. G, and we'll continue to improve on our practices. Big thing today. This is an overview of the CIWP. Can make sure you guys can actually see this in just a second. So I don't know where Zoom went. Screen. And so, because I know some people, would you like me to jump to the budget part first or do this entire process? What is the recommendation, members of the LSC?
Well, you have to do a report. I mean, honestly, it's too much for one meeting, to be honest, but I think unless you want to come back and do some CIWP in May.
We can. I'll do a high level and then same slides and I'll come back to it. But obviously CIWP, it's a 3-year plan. These are all the parts to it, the areas we were selected. We've been worked over the summer to really put this into place. This is just some of the subcommittees that were a part of it in development this summer. These were the expectations in the design. I think that's that's good. And then these were the final 3 that we focused on: curriculum and instruction, post-secondary success, and connectedness and well-being. From the district, we only needed to put 2 forward. We put 3 because we felt connectedness well-being was essential to our work. And here's the link to the placemat you all have, as well as the CIWP as a whole. Curriculum instruction, we've been working on this all year. That focus has been on engagement and then unit planning. It's been a part of our professional learning plan. You can see that this is our theory of action. We have some goals that we've been on track for, that we're meeting success with in professional development sessions, teacher submissions, improving it. Things that we need to continue to work on is more of that standardization that happens for the 4-year sequence of our unit plans. This will come in time. So it's off track, but it's actually a 3-year goal. We know that that's part of this. And so curriculum instruction has made a lot of progress. I can go into this more detail later. The second one is post-secondary. I'm very excited about a lot of what's taking place within our post-secondary work. Again, we want to improve on how we've already been improving and hitting our goals. We've already surpassed some of our goals when it comes to match fit applications. We're the goals we had, like there were 80 some odd %. I think it's on a different slide, but I won't show it to you right now. And there's a plan for every student. Our goal, last year, 88.6 was our highest for enrollment. Last year, we're at 88.5. We're on track to be at 91, 92, which is awesome. And same thing with persistence. And so I'm very excited about what's happening for our students of getting into college, enrolling in college, and staying in college. The final one was connected to well-being, and this is just about the student experience. And we're talking about tier 1 supports all the way to the tier 3 supports. And just kind of flipping through with the culture and climate team, doing a lot of things that are teacher staff driven, such as being in the halls. This is something that's new coming out of some of our groups, but also the reduction in the repeated instances. This is a fresh and hot off the press right here about week 30. We are the teal. That's this year. Last year was the gray. This has looked very similar. Last year, we were so proud of how much progress we've made. We are continuing that pattern that you see on this of the reduction in out-of-school suspensions. The part where you see a lot of positives taking place is that we aren't seeing as many of the high-level 4, 5s, and 6 incidences. I'm saying at the unique students at the bottom that when we do have out-of-school suspension, it's not the same people over and over again. We're actually able to do interventions, get in front of it, and change the trajectory for the students. And this is because we have really solid SEL supports. And why I'm emphasizing this is because this informs our budget. If we're going to be successful with this SEL work moving forward, we can't give up on it. Meaning we have to keep allocating funds to those positions. And you'll see in the presentation that I intend to sustain all the positions that we currently have, teaching and social emotion. with the addition potentially of some others, and then making some adjustments to kind of tailor some of our needs. So that's why it's important we do talk about the CIWP when we talk about a budget, because they're the same. If we can, having a right number of teachers informs our curriculum and instruction. But I am super proud of our team, and we as a school and LSC should be as well. Because our out of school suspension dropping, in school suspension, and restorative practices is just phenomenal. So here we go, rock and roll time. Budget overview. I presented the general information to the staff. With the staff going over just 2 days after it. I was still making sense of a lot of the things with it. And so now it's time to present it to you in the week of the 29th. We need to approve it because it has to be approved by May 3rd. So just as a reminder of what these different types of funds are, in the things I share with you every month, you'll see codes 115 and all those numbers mean things. It's like where the money is going, what source it's coming from, and it takes a lot of time to make sense of it. Ms. Lopez and I have a really great grasp of it. And that's why I want to meet with anybody who wants to talk through it, because I can start making some more sense of what we're sharing with you, because we are trying to share everything. But you have Title I funds. We don't get any 332s. You're not going to see them. We don't get them. But we do get a lot of grants, and those have specific roles. So when somebody gives you money in a grant, you can only spend it a certain way. And so it is already dictating the use of funds. So that's why some of these funds, when I say it's already designed to be paying what it's doing, let's say it's a math grant, we've gotten over $100,000 in math grants, they go directly to math. They can't go to English, they can't go anywhere else, because that's what the grant was intended. And so that's when we make sense of these funding codes. There are words I'm going to use. Bucket, think of it. We have money coming from a source, you put it in a bucket, so it's to be poured and used for something, for different things. Once you as an LSC approve for something to go in the bucket, we can start pouring it out. Quota, and that's going to be an important word you're going to hear me use. That means we're giving a position, it doesn't matter the cost, their benefits, you get the position as a whole. And so you don't have to worry about the cost of it. It could be $1 million, it could be $50, it doesn't matter. It's a quoted position. Grants, again, those are things that are given to the school. And accounts and account names are how the codes, 00059s, let me know it's a 49 is a teaching position. 59 is an options position. Like those are codes that are part of how we know how everything is lined up. And so we're not going to look at our original budget because it's different, totally different than it's ever been. And it is still based on student numbers, and it's based on the 20th day. So on the 20th day, we had 2,097 students. 20 of our students were cluster. 2,077 students is what our budget is really based on. We're currently at 2,063. We are projected potentially to be at 2,177 at the start of next year, which is problematic because you're funded for 2,077. And those are things that we are working through right now. You're going to hear about the opportunity index. That is which the district has made a determination of the needs of a school based on a variety of different criteria, including basically where the school physically is located in the surrounding neighborhood. We are Lincoln Park High School, and our immediate neighborhood is Lincoln Park. It's not necessarily taking into consideration that we have 5 different aldermen, we have a variety of areas, and the majority of our students do not represent that specific area. It's also when they look at certain things, they're looking at the percentage of students. So if it's percentage of under-resourced students at a school, let's say ours is 50%, that's 1,000 students. But to the district, it's 50%. So a school with 157 students that's at 100% is going to get a variety of different funds. And you know what? There's a theory and there's all these different things around it. But what I still care about is Lincoln Park High School and that every student in our building gets the resources they can. We are not going to get certain funding from the district. We are not hitting those thresholds. So here we go. I want to make sure you understand the difference between last year and this year, understand our short-term, long-term goals, understand that we are going to ensure to the best of our ability, the academic and social emotional supports needed for all of our students. We're going to align it to our CIWP, and then we're going to make sure that through our programming needs for our schedule that we are meeting that. So CIWP, these things have to be centered in all of our budgetary decisions. Curriculum and instruction, it's going to be our teacher allotment. Post-secondary connectedness and well-being, it's going to be something called needs-based funding. They're going to be sourced from 2 different areas. So here we go. Change number 1, foundation positions. This is when I say quota positions, each school is given certain positions. In the past, every school, all 601 schools in our district received 3 positions total. 1 principal, 1 clerk, 1 counselor, regardless of the school. 5,000 students, 4,000 students at Lane, 157 students at Manly, they each get these 3 positions. This year, it's changed. They're giving more foundational positions and they're adjusting it based on the needs of or on the structure and design of a school. 1 principal, 1 clerk still, we only get 1 clerk, 1 assistant principal, and we get 99, can you see it? No, you can't. 99 general ed positions. And I'll explain how that is determined. 5 counselors. I'll explain how that's determined in just a moment. And 2 school assistants to be used for whatever the needs are of the school. So a shift from 3 to 109. Cool part about it, it doesn't matter what the cost of any of these positions are. $1,050, we don't have to worry about paying for it, which actually, in a way, there's a slight benefit for us at Lincoln Park High School. So in a way, this is actually good for us for general education teacher support. Because we as a school have experienced veteran master teachers, and with that comes a cost of pay and benefits. So I can say that about 140 to 160 is the average cost for with benefits for a teacher at our school, where sometimes it could be 80 to 90 if it's a school with mostly brand new teachers. And that is not a statement on anything besides just how funding works. So here's the breakdown. Sorry, but super tiny. Try to zoom in. This is a breakdown of the foundational positions. Counselors, every school gets a counselor. And then for every 500 students beyond that, you're given another counselor. So we get 5. So we have 2,077 for this formulation of our money on the 20th day. Students, because of our opportunity index, we get a teaching position for every 21 students. That does not mean classes will all be 21. That's just how many positions you get. And so based on that, we have 99 teachers. Then based on school enrollment, we're over 1,000, we get 2 school assistants. So that's how these foundational positions are determined. General ed teachers who were teaching classes in front of students, we had about 98 this year. So in a way, this is actually like a shift of 1 teacher. And it means all of our funds to pay for the 98 teachers now are paid for by the board. This is beneficial to teachers in general because teachers now have more flexibility to transition. A lot of teachers who will want to, I moved on the south side, I want to work here, but I'm in that 140, 160 range. The schools can't afford them. And so it actually gives teachers flexibility to where they want to go. But this is the foundation breakdown of foundational positions. This is what I've been doing with our department chairs this week. I'm meeting with them. We've already done our programming. All our rising 9th, 10th, and 11th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade students. We know what classes they're taking, so we know how many courses we need. So I need to now figure out, of those 99, how many of them are math teachers? How many are social studies teachers? How many of them are visual arts teachers? Of the 99 to meet our programming. And that's why that is so important to meet with all the department chairs to set that. The complication that we do have is that it is based off of 2,077 students. I anticipate 2,177 students. We have to create a buffer for our 9th graders in this process. And so we're doing our best I'm doing my best to do that as I work with the department chairs to prioritize the needs of our classes we're offering. So that will be a point. If we ballooned up to 2,300, we'd be in hot water. We will not be taking students off the wait list for that very reason. We currently have, we started at 540 on decision day for Go CPS. We are now at 514. I'm hoping we go under 500. So if our enrollment is down, that's a positive for us financially because it makes us where our classrooms in 9th grade can be smaller. And that is my intent. So I do not intend to pull from the wait list. So if we get under 500, don't freak out that people aren't wanting to come here. It's that we're doing everything to not balloon up because we usually have 30 walk-ups in our neighborhood at the beginning of the school year. And this year we had 30 to 40 newcomers. So if we had, let's say we double that and we have 60 newcomers, 30, we have 100, we're doomed. So I still anticipate we'll be around over 540. And I want our Go CPS number to be under 500. That's my strategy at this point. I want planning, but I'm planning for 530, 540 freshmen in the numbers right now. So other shifts. We used to have student-based budgeting where principals were entirely in charge of every dollar. I got $6,382.99 per student. we still get funding. It's now called needs-based funding. And because of our opportunity index, the base was 1,095, and then each point above 14, you get like $18, I believe. And that's how we end up with 1,167. So cool. That's the money we pay for everybody who's not a teacher. That's not a lot of money, but it's an advantage for us to have those 99 in our teaching staff because that has taken a good chunk of our budget. And so again, thinking about these numbers that I just talked through, we get $2,447,000. But understand what $2,447,000 each teaching position. Think of them as like, if I were to open a brand new one, it would probably, they would make me open it at 110 or something like that. So you could, but this is not for this is meant for our SEL and all our other supports outside of it because we've been given an allotment of 99 teachers. So this money will go towards assistant principals. This will go towards our deans, our SEL positions that we've created. This goes towards our clerks. Again, one clerk for our entire school, our business accountant, our programmer, our librarian. These different positions will come out of this, and there's ways to create balance. So what I can actually do if somebody's in a teaching position who's not teaching full time, but they're very expensive, I can still put them in the 99, and then I can pay for a teacher out of the needs-based budgeting to help lower this money. So use a librarian. And this is not stating Ms. Giannopoulos' information. This is me making up numbers. If Ms. Giannopoulos is a $180,000 position, but I have a teacher who total sum is going to be 88, I'm going to move the librarian into the 99, move the teacher out, pay for them out of the needs funding. They're still going to be teaching. It's just swapping money. So the 99 are allocated for teaching. So I'm not messing with that. I just want to be clear on what people say, well, you have 99, you're not doing that. They're teaching. Because that's the only way we're going to be able to offset the incoming freshmen. It's the only way we can do it. So I have to make those 99 so that we can offset it. The district says you can use those 99 to not teach full time. I can't risk that knowing that we're going to have 100 kids off. 20th day, they're supposed to then make up for it. I don't know what that looks like. Do they give me 4 positions? I have no clue. Maybe I move it. I'll tell you more about that because I don't know. They give us about $17,000 for professional development, professional learning. And so that's how this is allotted. So
17,000 per person.
No, total. That's all our PD for the entire year.
17,000.
Yeah. $17,000, yeah, $17,000. As you guys know, through extended day and all that, we do way more, but we only get 17,000. That would be about, that's like 2 days of PD with about 20 to 30 people for a couple hours. But other changes. So there are program specific allocations. This has changed since I presented it to teachers. I have been able to talk to the individuals associated with it. When I presented to the teachers on Wednesday, we were allocated 2 IB coordinator positions. The district had a ratio of if you have a program over 50, you get a program or a coordinator. Well, we have our DP and we have our MYP. Mr. Conzen has done a phenomenal job of building our CP program from what was like 32 students to nearly 100 students now. So we're over 50. I made that very clear to the district. My appeal went through. We now have 3 IB positions. So this slide changed from when I presented to teachers. We get 1 athletic director position, which is great. So it creates the sustainability for athletic work, and we get 2 JROTC positions. That doesn't mean we're going to be able to hire the second one because I don't do the hiring for it. It's central based for the district. We're very likely going to have 1 JROTC teacher for the entire year because I think there are numerous vacancies and maybe 2 applicants. So don't quote me on that exactly. I'm not a part of the hiring process for JRTC, so I wasn't sitting at that table. Here are some of the operational supports. We get 9 lunchroom staff, and I'm very happy to see the district support the safety and safety of our school by maintaining our 12 security guard positions. At one point, they only funded 4. So we've been able to increase that to 12. If they had reduced it back to those 4, we would have a $450,000 deficit. And so this is what I was sweating about and rocking back and forth that night until I got on April 8th. So I'm very happy to know that we'll have our security support moving forward. Here are some of the methodologies of some of these additional funding resources: social workers, nurses, custodians, is based on school. We don't have tutor corps. Some of these things don't apply to us as a school, but the custodians and engineers and all that are determined by the district. I've been advocating and this came in the last facilities meeting, man, I would really like to just be in charge of the custodians myself. Work with amazing leader at our school, lead custodian sitting in the back, to help support our custodians as a whole. Okay, this is a slide I need everybody to pay attention to. This happens every single year, and it's extremely frustrating. Every single year, there's a massive cut to every school's allocation of special education teachers and SECAs. We currently have 20 special education teachers. This is stating 15. And that includes our cluster teachers. To make sense of this, we offer at each grade level in math, science, English, social studies, basically like 3 co-taught and 2 instructional. That's 1 teacher. So if I have 4 freshmen, 4 sophomores, 4 juniors, 4 seniors, that's 16. I don't know how 13 makes sense because that's not including our cluster. So on May 3rd, once our budget's approved, is when I can start the appeal process. Our case manager and our 0.5 case manager and our chair and our clerk associated with our DL department, we are ready to rock that and demonstrate that we should at minimum be at 18. But they have us at 15. Pay attention to that number because it's something that we have to make sure, because I don't want to lose any of those teachers. We have some phenomenal diverse learning teachers at our school. And so I will fight endlessly for that.
Dr. Steinmiller, just real quick, you were able to appeal the other stuff. Why can't you appeal this?
They're not allowing us to do it until May 3rd. They made a statement to all schools in the district that we're not allowed to do it until May 3rd. Last year, I did it 2 to 3 days after I got my budget. I was able to put an appeal in. Before we approved the budget last year, they had already made the adjustment. That is not the process for the district this year because I think too many people didn't appeal, or I don't know, but and we were one of those who were in front. I can't speak for anybody else. We have to appeal for that, and we have to get our positions funded. We do get our 1.5 case managers that we currently have. We do have an ELPT who supports our English language learners. They are expected to be off and not teach. Currently, our ELPT teaches part-time and is in the ELPT the rest of it. That she will have to be full-time ELPT, which is good. She can provide PD and services for our English language learners. We get $3,250 to help support our English language learners. And so that money will go directly to those students. Quick recap, major shifts in foundational positions, shifts in how we go from student-based budgeting to needs-based budgeting, and then very specific program operational allocations are different. So here's since basically I have about 2 more weeks to be able to complete this. I've been meeting with department chairs. Today's the general overview with you. I have a network budget meeting on the 24th. So I need to meet with the network before we even can approve this as an LSC. And then the week of the 29th, we need to determine when we're meeting. Diverse learning staffing appeals are May 3rd. Here are the things I want us to make sure you're emphasizing when this approval time comes the week of the 29th. Priorities for our 99 teacher allotments to support programming and school schedule. I need our 99 teaching. Again, I may move one person into that for funding purposes and pay for a teaching position out of the other just to make the best use of our funds. I intend to maintain our current non-teaching support. That's our SEL, our deans, and other positions that we have as our school. Here are things that if we have available funds beyond that I would like to prioritize. Number 1 is a registrar / counseling assistant student records. We only have 7 counselors. We should have 8 counselors, but the amount of paperwork and student documents and resources is a pull on their time and energy where they're not able to focus on our students. This will help our counselors. Not only that, it helps us as a school. One thing from our audit, which we haven't received the final results, is that they make sure that as soon as we get those financial forms for fee waivers, it's instantly into the computer. And so that we can do a faster response to be able to support our students and make sure all documentations are in there. And that would be, that person over the summer would also then help enroll our students. Right now, we're paying counselors and paying other people to do it. So we might as well have a position that's full-time and year-round to do it, so we don't have to pay other people to do it. It's going to be cost-effective in the long run.
Meaning that you pay less for them than you might for overtime for a.
Correct. This position itself would be something like $50,000 to $60,000, but we may pay $20,000 to $30,000 to have multiple other people do this work. But this person then will also have the full year of being able to support all the time. And it'll make it where, again, our counselors don't have to do enrollment. We have people being enrolled today. And so Ms. Murphy had to come down and do it. So that would be the role of this person. The next would be a head of security. We have 12 security guards. Contractually, none of them can lead each other. And my youth intervention specialist, my student support advocate, their job description isn't to oversee security. And not only that, when they're doing their jobs, they aren't able to support security. So we need somebody full-time to make sure students aren't walking off campus that aren't supposed to go off campus. Security is in their posts where they should be, that we're getting a new system put in, camera system with 40 more cameras. And there's going to be a central station with numerous TVs to monitor all of those cameras. They become the center. And so that is a position that I think is essential for our work. Ms. Walker was having to do this for the majority of her time to build those systems. That's an assistant principal. That isn't going to be the same level of consistency a head of security would on a day in and day out. So that when we start implementing having our students go off campus through a single door and re-enter through a single door, that they're ensuring that those processes are actually taking place. The other things to consider, because we now have the 3 IB positions, well, one is Mr. Konzen, who has been our testing coordinator, assessment coordinator, to look to bring in a position to, again, doing testing coordination, because that's been really helpful to create a smooth process this year, as well as a way to support our IB continuum. We have our evaluation coming up. It's a full-time job to get that done right. And so I need to make sure that we have some additional supports for that, but also to help support our teachers. And then if there are available funds, athletic coordination, either extended day or a position. I'm not saying we're going to be able to do all of these because we're not done yet, but these are some of the things that I'd like to prioritize. One thing that I would like to adjust is one of our SEL positions to turn it into a 52-week position instead of 39.6, so they can start building the processes. And that would be an at-risk coordinator. An at-risk coordinator is responsible for supporting students with attendance, supporting the security and security lead, and also making sure that students who are having a repeated aren't responding to interventions are being supported, but also then if there is some type of in-school restoration, that they also can do that. But it would be a 52-week, so it actually gives us time to have somebody plan it. And so that would be one thing that we'll be advocating for. And then one of the foundational assistant positions we have 2 of them. One of them I would like to be set to provide bilingual supports in the classroom. We do not have any science teachers, for example, with ESL who are bilingual. Then they can prioritize cohorted EL students by being in those classes to help with language translation and bilingual supports. And that's where I want to emphasize one of those assistant positions. I just want to be clear of how I'm going to use one of those 2. Currently, we have 2. One is staffed in attendance. The other is still yet to be hired. I like to hire the other to support ELL students. That is how I intend to use these funds and present it to you. I will know more on this sheet once the budget is finalized. And I hope to have that done as soon as humanly possible. But I need to meet with the chairs to make sure we have the appropriate allocation of those 99 positions. Yes.
So I have one question. So we have the 99 teachers allocated under this new budget plan. So that means that we won't have any vacancies like we had this year?
Clarify your question.
Yeah. So at the beginning of the school year, we were missing 2 math teachers. And that took a while for us to find those teachers. Am I understanding that now with the allocation of those 99 positions that we'll have all of these classrooms fully staffed?
It depends on the scenario. And so I'll give you an example of the scenario. We had somebody to be staffed for one of the math positions and the principal never released them. And it led us to having that. And then we also had some people go on. At the beginning of the year, we had there was a change in the leave policy. And so teachers could extend their maternity leaves to 12 months. So they, at the very beginning, and this happened the week before school started, they changed the policy. So all of a sudden we had a staff position and then we had a vacancy. So I'm going to say no, that it does not guarantee that, because it guarantees we will have the positions allotted to us from the district. There are other variables that could lead to a vacant.
So I think if they give us the money to staff 99, it's up to us to staff them.
Correct.
So.
Yes. Because right before school started, I would say 2 to 3, and maybe don't misquote me on the exact timeline, but 2 to 3 weeks before school, we anticipated we were fully staffed. And then the week before school, there were the change in policy made it where 2 positions became vacant.
Are we still going to have then the backlog of waiting for a principal to release another teacher before we can move them over? I mean, is this still kind of that?
We have to, for me, like, I mean, before we even extend the offer, I need to make sure the principal is going to release them. They said they would, but then they had more, the person they had that said would release it didn't for them. So it was a domino effect, in that one specific hiring. But with the flexibility of these being quota positions, I see more movement and more flexibility to move, because if a principal of school X only has $80,000, they can only hire a certain teacher. Now it's a quota position. It doesn't matter. So anybody can be in that position. And so I think it's going to create more movement and more flexibility. I anticipate shifts district wide of people moving. Yeah,
It's too hard to tell, but that doesn't preclude from us having vacancies like we had earlier this year. That may still happen. Okay.
Other questions?
Yeah, at the beginning of the year, there was some discussion about the newcomers and having support for that. Is that something that's being addressed by?
You saw $3,000. I will say this. I had a meeting yesterday with several. I mean, it was a great mix of teachers, staff members, SECAs, counselors. We have a large group of our teachers and staff who are very motivated to, one, ensure that our students are getting the supports. And they're also not just supports for academics, but the social emotional supports, and are being respected in the classroom and be welcomed into the classroom. And so those are things that we're going to have to prioritize moving forward. I think, and I presented this actually today at the network, that there has to be some top-down supports from the district. I went to the chief. I asked to be able to speak directly with Olsay to kind of talk about how we can help inform district policies that will ultimately have a trickle-down effect on schools. For example, of how you kind of template supports for students based on their needs coming in, that I talked to the group about. So no, but we're going to have to make it ourselves. And so what we have to do, and you will see, is in our scheduling of those 99 positions, we will have our teachers with ESL endorsements, as well as who are bilingual. They will be prioritized to support the cohorts of students at 9th, 10th, and 11th and 12th grade. English, we have a strong infrastructure. Social sciences, we have a strong infrastructure of ESL. We've had the most hiring in our individuals and societies or social studies. And I've been hiring ESL and bilingual teachers continually in that department. They're pretty good. Science, we're not. Math, we're getting there. We have one teacher who has an ESL. And so, but we have a lot of people who are motivated to get learn and to get how they provide ESL supports. But that's where that assistant then will be able to go prioritize in math and in science to do push in. We'll still have all the kids in the same class. Mr. Drake, one of our math teachers, is doing an awesome job and actually jumped in on his own to do this second semester to cohort the students in his class. We have a parent who comes in and volunteers to provide bilingual supports. And that's kind of a model for some of the things that we're doing with this assistant. And so our teachers are really helping me inform how we can move forward and also push back to the district to provide support.
So are the additional 100 students that you're expecting at the beginning of the year, are those expected to be newcomers?
Yeah, I'm planning on it. I'm expecting it. So I have to be prepared to it's going to be hard work to kind of think in advance of what we don't know yet. But I would be really surprised if we had fewer than 30 show up on day one. But I got to prepare for it. So if it's more than 30 and they tend to be freshmen, we have to then cohort potentially 2 classes, maybe even 3. That now we're starting to push the social studies and ESL supports in our English. But what I've committed to our staff, and I want to say it right here as well, I'm not going to redefine a position that is currently staffed to be ESL or bilingual, because we have great teachers here. But when we do have a vacancy moving forward, we are going to prioritize that they are bilingual and or have an ESL endorsement. And that's just going to be hiring moving forward. So if we have a new science position, it has to be ESL or bilingual so that we can support our kids in those classes. And I think that's a fair way to do it, where we're maintaining the integrity of our amazing teaching staff, but able to move forward with EL support.
Xander, did you have? Just the positions that you listed as possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
What's the total dollar amount that you think might be remaining right now? Because I know
$120,000.
320. Okay. So because you want to use those for positions, and obviously like the LSC can brainstorm also whether the LSC members thinks the best use of those dollars.
That's why I'm showing this to you right now.
Yeah, which is really
I want
helpful.
you to have time to look at this and think about these are things but if you have other suggestions or other different kinds of thoughts around this, please share them. But if we have money for it, because there's still things that are being finalized of those 99. The 99 is not set because I haven't finished with the department chairs to see where adjustments are. And then I still have to then move people, right? Play that little chess game. At that point, the full number will be set. I'm saying 320, but that's a fake number because it's not, haven't completed that. But these would be things, the top two, I would say A and B, I think are just, A, B, and C are like really important. The registrar for our counselors need that. They deserve that. And our school needs it as just a way. We have 100 years of student records in our school. It's ridiculous. And I can't ask Miss Lugo, Miss Trochet, Miss Lopez, Miss Alta. I cannot ask them to do that on their own. It's not fair to them. They're already spread too thin. The head of security will really lock in all the things we've been prioritizing of attendance and of consistency because when we keep people in the building, guess what? We got to keep them in the classroom. Because just because they're outside, that means that we got to make sure they're not in the halls. And I need somebody who is at point on that 24/7. Well, not within their work days. So that's why those are like really important things. And testing is essential at our school.
So just real quick on those three, I can see the need for all of them. The head of security, I could see being ongoing. When you talk about the registrar, like we have 100 years of records, does that mean once those are processed or organized or whatever you want to do, that maybe that need goes away? Is that like a temporary? And then the second one would be the testing coordinator, since that was embedded in Mr. Kanzen's job this year, and he did a very successful job. To move it out next year, is that just because we have the IB certification, we need him focused on that, and when that's passed, that maybe he or someone else would assume it? So, or what? I'm just wondering, just more curiosity, are these long-term runs, or you don't know, but at least next year?
So as an LC, you've challenged me to in a lot of ways, and in good ways. But we talk about, hey, lane tech, or we have to be on par with. While we're a community neighborhood school, we want to be on par with selective like programs. They all have registrars. They all have heads of security. They all have testing coordinators. They have these positions. Lane has a director and 2 full-time athletic coordinators. So the things that we keep saying is we can do this as a community neighborhood school and be like selective enrollment. Then we need to have the resources that all those schools have too. And these are some of the 4 criteria. A registrar does your enrollment and makes the paperwork. Like that's tons of schools have it. We don't. And part of the reason we don't is because it was student-based budgeting. Like the fact that we can potentially have these positions is because those 99 are no longer, we're not paying for those 99. It's awesome. And so these are things that I think are essential for us to be able to meet these needs. And I think when we talk through, then our next steps as we're developing attendance supports, we can then lean on these positions, but without the supports, it's hard to make some of those things actionable.
Okay, thank you.
Just out of curiosity, do we see roles like establishing schedules at the beginning of the year falling under any of these positions, or would there be a need for an additional position?
Yeah, we would maintain having like our programmer.
Okay.
Like that wouldn't be these. And number 2 is maintain our current teaching staff, support, non-teaching support. That would continue. Technically, C, if is maintaining, because we have a coordinator, and so actually I would actually take C out and put it with number 2.
Okay.
But because nobody's in the physical position, I felt it was important to talk about a level of flexibility with it without personnel filling it anymore.
When you're talking about the bilingual support, are you talking strictly just Spanish, or is there another language that you're focused on?
So we have what's called, so when you hit a certain threshold or number of students, actually you're supposed to be, all classes are supposed to be taught in that language. Spanish is the only language in which we've achieved that threshold, which technically their biology, chemistry, physics classes should all be taught by a Spanish speaking teacher. There's no way there's no school in the city of Chicago that does that or can do that. Some are closer, some are not. We don't have a number to actually achieve that. So this is where that assistant would be able to go into a science class and be able to help support the teacher who is not bilingual. And that might be something over time that we see as with an increased number that maybe we want to add additional resources to. and you guys talk about some of our student fees and our account, maybe it's at some point we go, you know what, we need another assistant. Let's prioritize this. Like this is working, but it's not enough. We need another position. Those would be some things that when we go back to the other conversations separately, we'll be able to kind of think through how we prioritize that we use other money. But this is the money that we are it's only these sources of money. The 115 money is all we're talking about here. This isn't about internal accounts. This isn't anything else, just the funds, the needs-based funding that we have received. 115.
Yeah, just noting that Miss Kaler has her hand raised.
Oh, and Ms. Kaler?
Hi, Miss Kaler. Seems like you're still muted, but we do see your hand up.
Yeah, sorry.
No problem.
I can't get my screen to work on this Zoom. Just one question. It's not gonna make sense a little bit, so I'm hoping you can make sense of it for me. If I go back to, I've been thinking about this recently, but going back to slide 5 where it shows previous years and this year. So for the last 4 years, for reasons understood, we've created positions, right, based on the needs of the school. And it looks like we are also this year, according to maybe what Dr. Steinmiller is thinking through for the needs of our school, adding more that would come out of our budget, correct? Am I making sense so far? So, for example, we have 1 AP. That means that previous years we only had a principal, but we didn't. Did we pay then for those 3 APs that we have out of our budget?
Yeah, that's been like that like forever.
Right. For sure. So I just want to know then, based on this year, what we're getting, is it possible to, in our next meeting when we have it, to identify the positions that we currently have that we're paying for out of our budget so that we can see, in addition to what you want to add, if it is the right way to approach this? Meaning, if we're growing and growing and growing our school in certain areas of need, are we making sure that we're using the current positions that we have effectively? Am I making sense?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. And so number 2, for example, was like maintaining our current non-teaching staff. So that would be like our student support advocate, which would be our dean. That would be the community rep liaison. That would be the clerks. That would be 2 counselors. That would be the 2 of our 3 APs, because now they're paying for 1. Again, I think I can go through that and can share like that whole list with you. Again, I would highly encourage us to maintain all of those positions that are currently staffed based off of the success we're finding with that. But I hear what you're saying. I think that's a fair question. And so I'd be happy to share all of those additional positions. And then again, what I'm trying to share is like what in addition to those positions, I think we would build onto it. Yeah, that's fair.
Sure. I mean, we've said in the past, because those of us that have been there long, that some of the positions that have been created was the work of the 3 APs that we had, right? We had to use them properly because that was a big budgetary, chunk. So I just want to make sure as we're moving forward that we have the big picture here, that indeed we're using the positions that we have created out of the budget effectively. So if we could then have, maybe the budget subcommittee can work with how much money is coming out and what are those positions based on what we've agreed to as an LSC. Can we pull back on some of them? Can we add additional responsibilities? For teachers in the school, we would really like maybe more money directed towards students. I might get myself in trouble for that, but I just would like an overall perspective here. That's it.
I mean, I'm happy to share the list, but the LSC cannot define the roles and responsibilities of that's personnel. That's
I
my
see.
job. Like, yeah. So I'd be careful on like on that. Like you can't say, hey, I
Sure.
want this assistant principal to be in charge of X, Y, and Z. That is not your job. But I do hear you
Yeah.
on the listing of all of the positions.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. And if there are any other questions or clarifications, but just like each job description I'm talking, there is a description that is associated with it. And so that's like, for example, the 52-week at-risk coordinator, their job allows them to have a role with security, but also with attendance, but also with something else. And so it creates a unique benefit. That's why there's a title to it. Like a student support advocate being like JJ's position, for example, has specific roles and responsibilities associated with it. And so each of those have contractual supports and expectations, and we're trying to do more of an alignment to that. Again, I can share that list, but again, I am going to be pretty solid on that we should maintain our current non-teaching staff, and so we start playing with the pieces, we look at like really undermining the work and achievements we have already had. New this year, our college career coach is not funded. Our tech coordinator is not funded. And if anybody in this room thinks it's a good idea to cut either of those positions, you're crazy. And that's not acceptable. And so most of these positions, and I'm talking about every one of those, I'm going to be pretty hardcore on, we're not cutting our college career coach. We're not cutting tech coordinator. So when I share it, like, please, like, I definitely would like to have a conversation with you about why maybe you're thinking that way, so I can understand where that's coming from and what additional supports that you think need to be provided that aren't. And that's, I think, important for anybody to be able to look at.
But I think that's the conversation, right? Of what you think is needed, and that's our conversation. So
yeah,
I think it's important that we have it. Yeah.
I'll get that list up.
Okay. And just for that conversation, we kind of need to target it the week of the 29th. Is that correct?
It has, if we don't, if we hit May, I believe if we
Next week is my point.
Next week it's not going. I have to also present this to the chief.
Okay, fine.
And that is next Wednesday.
Fine.
And so Monday or Tuesday of the following week would be the best, or Wednesday afternoon. But we have all sorts of stuff going on.
May 1st. Okay, so
yeah, May 1st we can't do it.
Okay.
May 1st is like our decision day / well, it would just be. And then we're putting it on the 2nd, and then the district will probably just go, we're not approving as a district. So
okay.
I think it's a risk we get towards, but it's
okay. Got it. 29th or 30th. Okay. Alicia.
So I had a question. I know you presented this to the staff already. Did this list come in part from the staff, or is that any staff input?
yes. So, and this wasn't presented to the staff, but the recommendations for these positions have come over time. The registrar counseling assistant has come from our counselors and our attendance officer clerks. Like, they've been asking for this actually for 2 to 3 years. Head of security has been coming actually from some members of our security team, but also in some of even our teachers, and talking about who is the point person to make sure security is doing what they need to be doing. The testing coordinator was actually LSC and other people. Like, I actually think this is a position we currently have. It's just by moving somebody out, it will technically be vacant. And then there's some flexibility to it, but that means testing coordination, IB continuum of support. Like, there's some things we need to do. At one point last year, we were potentially going to get 4 IB supports. We have 3, which is great, but this is a way in which we can fully support it. So, and then athletic coordination, we've been talking about these things like all year. So none of these, I would say, are new thoughts that are coming forward. Maybe the at-risk coordinator being 52, but that would be taking a current position and just kind of changing the definition of it, and talking to the individual that's associated with it and a bunch of other things from that standpoint. But that at-risk is more specific, and the job criteria is more aligned to some of the things I see us needing.
And one of the other hot topics that we've always had was this overloaded classrooms. So is there any thought in that area of, like a hot area where we're always overloaded, and maybe having somebody additional?
Well, that's where the 99 are coming in, and actually having an additional teacher come out of that. So the going through with all their department chairs right now, if there was 2,077 students, we actually do have, like, yeah.
Yeah, as a teacher representative, I think that's the one thing that I'm most concerned about. And I don't know if it's a programming thing or a budgeting thing, but if we increase our enrollment by around 100 students, that's approximately a 4 or 5% increase in student enrollment. So if our student enrollment is increasing by 4 or 5%, I'd like to see, to prevent big classes or oversized classes, a 4 or 5% increase in, you know, the number of teaching positions as well. It doesn't sound like we're getting that, right? An increase of one person is not an increase of 4 or 5%. But so I think from the teacher's perspective, this budget concerns me, or the plan so far concerns me only in so much as I foresee it having a situation where there are large classes or oversized classes on, you know, as a breach of contract, or just like not ideal for the students themselves. And unfortunately, it sounds like that's a wild card kind of thing that you can't say you're necessarily able to prepare for. I would just be worried about what our programming work looks like over the summer and how we address that issue, because students deserve as the smallest, you know, teacher student ratio as possible. So I echo those same concerns. The fact that the student body is growing at a larger percentage increase than the staff that are teaching.
Yeah, and as we think through those 99, I agree with what you're saying. And that's where I have to be very specific to, like, within our programming. And that's why I'm going through the chairs with classes and making some decisions. And I think sometimes it's really about the amount of classes we have. If our classes are all 20 or 19, we will not have enough teachers. Or if we split a class and make it where it's a class of 15 and 15, we will not have enough teachers. And that's something that we're going through right now. If with a 99 allotment, you're the math person, you probably can make it, but if we, with our 99, if we had 2,077, I think it still averages out to an average class size of 21.9 or 8 or something like that. You can actually calculate that real quick. Right. And then if it goes to 2,177. So it's like 22. It was a 21.98. So yeah, it's 22. So it still is, and we have, and wellness classes, PE classes are 40, right? So the math, I mean, help me if I'm wrong, maybe if I'm seeing it wrong, but if programming is going the way it needs to, and we don't already kind of mess ourselves up at the beginning and commit to having a senior class of 16 or commit to having a class of 13, we should be able to then make that average. That is some things that I've been talking about for a while. We do currently have classes that are under, we have one under 10. So we have some of the overtime with some of our programs of study that students have had to continue into year 2 of something that we've just had to fund so they could graduate from that program. And so we have not been allowing that to move forward. And so we have a better job of not having classes of like 10, because later you're gonna have some classes over. So we have to make sure we're doing that appropriately. And I've been meeting with the chairs, and some decisions that we're making are this class will be 30. But that's so that this class as a whole, that teacher's average will stay below 140, and that we can prioritize some of our higher need classes being a little bit lower. And so we've been thinking through that a lot. So, but it is a real concern. So we should be able, hypothetically, we can do it still. Correct. But again, we just can't have classes of under 20, or really we shouldn't have classes under 21.
Last question I had was some of the comments we mentioned previous meetings and tonight earlier, like, hey, where does the conversation around allocation to transportation or performing arts or sending more kids to science conferences or whatever, you know, a lot of needs of the school, how does that get baked in here?
You could put a little bit of the extended day pay into it. The thing is with the flexibility of funds, this isn't as flexible. The student fees, another one, and like grants, gift grants, donations, those are more flexible of how you can use those, but also you're limited. Like it's hard, like this creates, like for positions, more sustainability because the money is going into it. Like if you did fundraising for, like, I know a lot of elementary schools do like library fundraising, and some elementary schools, their fees are $1,000 to pay for teaching positions, right? So the money comes in, then you have to put it on a 1-year line and it's really different. And it's a lot more complicated to use those types of funds for people power, but I believe in people power to get things done.
Okay.
So
these, that's helpful. So what we're talking about here with a budget is really less about that type of stuff. Like, do we do buses or not? And it's more about what's the staff we need to run the school next year in the best way possible, and
Well,
teachers.
can I interrupt a little bit on that? Because this is a point of contention and could be a discussion area, right? Because this is kind of a little bit of a negotiation. I mean, I think that Dr. Steinmiller is proposing that we use some of those funds for staffing, but then we do have other priorities, right? Like extended day, like you mentioned, transportation, which takes up a lot of the additional budgets that we have to work with. Also facilities, like we do have a lot that needs to be addressed within the school, capital improvement. So I think while Dr. Steinmiller is suggesting that we put some of these dollars behind these specific additional staffing requests, I think it's a discussion on what priorities if we want to put forth. So maybe it's a little bit more of that.
and I think that's why having like over a week to actually let this simmer is also helpful. And this is intentional so we can talk through this. And it's not like, hey, I'm presenting it tomorrow, you have to vote for it, folks. Like we actually do have some time to talk through it. So if there are things that you're thinking of and we want to meet with me and talk through it, I'd like to be able to make sense of this and maybe even talk to some of the people where this is coming from. But I do hear you. Like as we try to find the balance, I can't even promise we're going to be able to accomplish this. It may just be maintaining our current status quo. But I think the base for me personally, the base of maintaining status quo is the current positions that we have. If we start losing SEL positions or losing clerks, I don't know how we would be able to sustain some of the function of what we're doing. I'll tell you, being down one assistant principal has been like created some major difficulties. We have like the state average for administrators per student is 180 to an administrator. We're at 500 and whatever, so it's like we have a lot of people, and I could say the same thing for our office staff, or our attendance office, for our counselors, like for all these groups that our SEL team. You go to any other school, especially outside the district CPS, you have that infrastructure of supports. That's the area we are most lean on. But that's not to negate the need for making sure our instruction and we have the right amount of teachers and classes are appropriate sized and students are getting the learning experience. I'm not trying to say that, but we're actually going to increase that by one teacher that we currently have staffed this year. And that's not a lot, but that's one more. And so I anticipate that will probably, I won't say where yet, but.
Can any of those roles that you outlined there, can they be combined? It's easy to modify a job role right now that nobody's doing, rather than later that you're asking somebody to do extra work that they hadn't committed to.
I mean, yeah, I'm right now. Like I would say the counselors and then like our office staff they're doing 10 billion different jobs. And that's really, really hard. Like really, really hard. Like when it was just JJ running SEL, that was impossible. Now we have a really robust team and we're seeing, we are seeing the outcomes. And if that's it's in the student outcomes. And so just like if our students are finding ways to feel safe, supported, and included, then they're going to want to stay in the classroom, be engaged, and we have to improve attendance. I think that's something that we also have to prioritize. So some of these are targeting some of the things that we're concerned about. So that there is an intention behind it because we need that infrastructure. Because if we're going to increase having our students not be off campus when they're not supposed to, they're going to be here. And then we have to have more supports in the halls when they have to be informed, and we have to support our teachers in the classroom. So there's a lot of work to be done in planning what some of these things have been. But these are hitting some of the goals that this LSC has set. And so I need the resources though to achieve it. Or else we keep doing what we're doing.
Okay, so thank you. I would like to propose the following. We're gonna have a meeting the week of the 29th, and it sounds like it would be the 29th or the 30th. And at that meeting, we'd all get back together and we would discuss and then vote to finalize a budget, because we have to do it
by the end of that week. The other days are not good because other things are happening. So the question I'd like everyone to think about is, what do you need to be prepared for a discussion and a vote on the 29th or 30th? I've heard one thing from Miss Kayla, like, hey, could you provide, these positions we're paying for now and just compare it to this? Great. So I think you've said you're going to provide that. Is there any other data, or maybe a one-off discussion with Dr. Steinmiller or with the budget committee or whatever to process this? I do want to recognize most of us are probably not budget financial experts, yet this is part of our responsibility on being on the LSC. So as we try to study up and learn to make as good a decision as we can, what other information is there that you would like? And we could sort of note what that is, and that way we could try to get it out to people in advance of that meeting so we could come prepared to vote when we get here.
So one of the frustrations that I typically see with budgets is we're typically only presented with one final budget rather than, there's 2 or 3 options of, okay, well, if you choose option A, these are your pluses and minuses. Option B is pluses, minuses. And so for me, I'd like to see something like that. Yeah.
The list of all current positions, and then options of. Yeah, I could go with a couple of variations. That makes sense.
Great, thank you,
I
Lisa.
think that's smart, especially considering you had that like laundry, like that list of wants, right? Like, and you yourself said, I don't think that we're necessarily going to be able to get all of these. So like maybe this version of it prioritizes these 2 things. This version of it prioritizes these other things. I think that might be a nice, mix and match combination to look at. And to your point earlier, like if we can, in any way, think about what those roles are as far as consolidation. Maybe that informs some of the needs or not needs of certain roles. For example, testing coordinator historically being a role of an administrator rather than someone individually. This year, James Conzen, for example, has done a very good job, but he's not necessarily just a testing coordinator. He's also a program coordinator. And so, it would seem to me that like things went pretty well. Maybe the testing coordinator does not necessarily need to be its own position. So that'd be an example. That I can't speak to that. I'm not allowed to tell you how to make people do things, but it might be nice to have those justifications or have those available in order to justify certain other things.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Mr. Collins just said.
Great. Thank you, everyone. That's really good. Really good. Okay. With that, I think we could move on with the rest of our agenda. Let's see here. I will just say I have to leave in a little bit. Ted, are you still on or no? You are. Okay. So I think technically Amy should, if I do have to leave before we're done, I'm going to try to finish us, but she's supposed to do it. And then if not her, it goes to you. Could you just take us home through committee reports if we don't get through them?
Are you talking to Peter?
I'm talking to you, Ted. Yeah. Could you just help us finish the agenda if needed? That's
Peter,
part of the...
I just wanted to note that if you leave, we will no longer have a quorum.
Oh yeah, that's true. So we can still talk, but it's not a formal meeting anymore.
Yes.
Okay. Ted, you're off the hook. But it might be helpful if you volunteer. Yeah.
Sure. I can do it. Thanks.
Thank you. Yep. All right. Athletics. Oh no, you have.
So I think one of the line items was if you vote. It wasn't super. I didn't anticipate it, but I wasn't put there just in case. But since we aren't 29th here, is there a day that's standing out? 29th?
Yeah. Can we just look at calendars for a minute? Not the 30th for you. Okay. Could others do the 29th? Okay,
We have a PPLC meeting on the 29th.
Yeah, and there is
have to speak with, and you have a
student voice committee meeting. Yeah.
So are we saying 29th, 30th in the evening?
So there are different start times we could have. I mean, we currently be doing 4. We could push it to 5. That would help.
Yeah.
those- their
That
meetings.
would work for us, I believe.
Okay.
Monday would be better.
Monday? That's the 29th. Okay. Ms. Pulvita? All right. Ted and Miss Kaler and Sasha and Jane?
Miss Kaler says not the 30th or the 2nd.
Okay. Yes to the 29th, Miss Kaler? Great. Thank you. Sasha, Jane, and Ted, would the 29th at 5 p.m. work for you?
That should work for me.
Okay. Ted or Sasha?
I believe it's fine for me.
Okay. Great. Sasha? Maybe she stepped away. Paul Kendrick is not here. Ms. Zemnick's not here. I think we should say that and try to get them to attend.
Yeah.
So,
Great.
okay,
Their choice to leave is not something we can be held hostage by.
right. Okay, so let's say it's going to be on that date, 4/29, 5 p.m. in room 103. Oh. Okay. Okay. Got it. Thank you, everyone. That was very smooth. So anything else on the principal's report? Okay. Athletics, just quick update on how things are going.
But she has been monitoring, it's been in my updates I'm sending you weekly, supporting coaches and onboarding, making sure like buses are being allocated to the staff, right allocations. Coaches in it, we have some new coaches, even helping them through some of the processes. She's been meeting, Mr. Liscano and Mr. Savage are 2 of our teachers who have been supporting her regularly, one in some of the, making sure documents are being submitted, et cetera. A ton of paperwork. It's super slow. Then Mr. Savage is really helping some of the handbook and some of the process, bigger processing skills going on, also timeline of supports from how do we do parents, how do we grade more. So they're working through those plans. Currently, each of them are supporting twice a week, and then we'll have at some point 3 times a week there'll be the field zone, great routine, kind of playing off the concepts of how to like coordinate it.
Okay, thank you. She published a 30, 60, 90-day plan of sort of tasks. Do you know, is she basically on track with that? Okay, but are we on track? I guess I'm wondering. Yes. Okay, great. And then will there be any more? She wrote a very nice letter to the community. Will we be hearing from athletics before the end of the year about summer plans, fall expectations, ways for parents to get involved, recruiting, all that?
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you all talk to the mic, please?
So sorry. My bad.
Thank you, Jane.
She's creating, she in partnership with Mr. Liscano, they're working on some of the platforms for increasing communication, both independent newsletters, but then trying to attach to ours. Our webpage has been updated. So now we have a more updated athletic page. There's actually links for people to, if they want to know when all the games are, you can actually now connect to that through invites, our calendar invites for athletics. So we're increasing that type of frequency, and then also preparing for like like when families are coming in, that they know what sports are available, like on May 1st, so they can start engaging with those teams and be aware of when practice and summer practices. So she's outlining that for all families, so they can be clear of what the year-long process looks like.
I think that would be great. I mean, I think the school will benefit from a communication sort of campaign. Like over time, we're building towards some vision, and it sounds like things are in place, but I think it would be great before the end of the year that because most people are coming back next year to say, hey, we look forward to seeing you. We're excited about next year. Here's some things you can look forward to. Just that kind of thing. I think would be great. Okay. Next, student reports, student life, student voice.
So for Student Voice, there isn't a ton new to report. We've just been continuing conversations and meetings, trying to enact some of the policy proposals that we presented out at last month's meeting. We've made some progress on those, and we'll have continued updates on those as they continue to unfold. And also, recently the elections were held for the next cohort of student representatives, and we have been working with them and trying to find times to meet to get them fully onboarded, familiar with practices of student voice committee to ensure that they're able to hit the ground running and enact their agendas and continue the work that we're doing as soon as their term starts this July.
Okay. Jane, anything to add? Does that cover it?
Not for student voice, but for student life, just that there are super exciting senior activities coming up that student life has helped put together. And so just that, like grad night at Six Flags and prom and everything.
Great, great. I'm reminded on communication, a former LSC student rep, Zachary Rosenthal, used to help with a sports student journalist, like sports newsletter thing. I don't know if there's a desire to resurrect that, but if so, we have copy, like, I don't know, in Miss Carver's plan or if there's interest, but I just remember that being a thing that people enjoyed for a while. Okay. School reports, PPLC.
Dave, you want me to handle it and then you can jump in?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was thinking that I could go through the motions and, oh, sorry. And, because there were 4 motions that we passed unanimously, and then we met with Dr. Steinmiller soon after. And maybe you can discuss the follow-up with Dr. Steinmiller when I talk about the motions. Is that okay, Dave? Okay. So our meeting, I think you all have the meeting notes. The big discussion was from the art department. A large group of the art department met to discuss ordering issues, lack of supplies, and their ongoing frustration with, from their perspective, I believe, not meeting with the administration, not getting clarification on how to properly order, and more importantly, or the most important thing, not having enough supplies for the students to be able to run their classes. So this has been an ongoing concern. So I'm scrolling down to the motions. With that in mind, the PPLC put a motion on the table, PPLC art program, an immediate meeting with the entire art department with Dr. Steinmiller and Ms. Lopez to implement a functioning and consistent system for ordering supplies within an established budget. This included a clear and consistent policy of how much money is allotted to each art teacher, each course for the school year. Additionally, the art department should be able to place orders before the end of the school year to be ready for the next school year. This vote passed unanimously. Do you want to add something to that with our conversation with Dr. Steinmiller, Dave?
Dr. Steinmiller talked about going to meet with the art department. He did so during a department chair meeting, or during a department meeting. Members of the art department talked about the, or just recently reported back to us about the conversations. I'm hoping that they are, as a department and as an administration, continuing to collaborate and make sure that supplies are being purchased. Although I can't speak to the fact that if they have or not. I think Ms. Grimm had mentioned that they were starting to make purchases or certain orders were made. I forget what the language in her email was.
Yeah, as a follow-up, I did go to the department meeting. One of the biggest concerns is they have a lot of expired products that are just sitting in storage and closet they can't use. And going back quite a few years. And so we are going to meet to audit what they currently do have, and then remove and dispose of what is filling all of their spaces of just unused material that we have to just, at this point, get rid of. We are then going to talk about, there is a consistent process. All chairs have been, this has been shared for an extended period of time of how to do orders. They all did it by the 12th. That's how we know we have 150. It's been a consistent practice. But I clarified that with the entire department so that they knew exactly what that process was that the chair should be following. And that all items that have been purchased have been received and they have their resources that they've ordered this year. But we didn't, one of their big things was that they don't have places to put them. So we need to make sure we get rid of the other stuff. I have a date set up to follow up with them, and then another date for, I'm getting them some time after our seniors graduate, for them to have some time to then actually purge the stuff that is unusable at this point.
And not to go too deep, but why would they have stuff they didn't use? They ordered and didn't use. Was it COVID that said, hey, the kids weren't here and they sort of expired, or?
I can't speak to that. I mean, I really don't know. I mean, it could just be a transition of like 20. I mean, we have stuff going back 100 years in places. And part of the reason, even for the registrar, is we have student files that are like that. Even in the last 6-7 years that aren't 6-7 years ago are just all over the place. Like it's pretty. And so it's like that. And part of what, going back to athletics, she's actually going to also assess all of our spaces, clear them out. And then we're starting where people know where to store things. And next to the swim room, they've actually gutted that whole room. That she's already started some of those.
Okay.
That's school wide. Like I wouldn't even put it on the art department. I just think things have been stored for years and just haven't been cleaned up.
Okay, so you are meeting with them then, and this is going to be, I'm assuming, in the next couple of weeks, the art department, when we reach out to them, the PPLC, that this has been handled and there is a clear process moving forward, and the students will have their materials by the beginning of the year.
April 25th, I'm meeting with them again.
And by when do they need to order materials for next year?
Well, it's already passed. I've already communicated.
Have they submitted it?
Yes, they have.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Okay. So they
So we're
should
on
have
track.
everything that, right, great. So they should have everything in the spring, in the fall then. Okay. All right, that's good. Next, I think this piggybacks off of that, and we were talking about it as an LSC. The PPLC recommends a clear budget line for each department and the amount of money allocated for each department. This includes the LPHS library, or this vote passed unanimously. We brought it up, I believe, to Dr. Steinmiller when we met with him a couple days later. Dave, do you remember?
Yes.
Did you say yes?
Yes, I remember.
Okay, do you remember, or did Dr. Steinmiller, do you recommend that, do you agree that each department should have a clear budget line, or that at least moving forward into next year, that we know how much money is being allotted to each department? That
Yeah, we discussed with
Yeah.
Dr. Steinmiller the eventual goal of our budget subcommittee is to get to a place where we can preemptively have a better understanding and predict departmental costs and needs. And once that has been handled, or like once that can be implemented, then we can get a better understanding, and then we can start giving departments certain amounts of money on an annual basis. But so there's an agreement that needs to happen, and it is currently, slowly being worked on as we make our budget and get understandings of how much money each department spends annually.
Budget committee agrees and have been recommending similarly.
Yeah, the plan is for SY25 next year, fall requests, spring requests, all based off of unit plans. So it's got to be founded on how it's supporting the resources for instructional purposes. That would be for next year. And then SY26, we should have a good indication with all unit plans being completed of what the full funding needs to look like. This is aligned with our CIWP. This year was 70% of unit plans. Next year is 100% of unit plans. And so you can only do funding off of 70%. Let's next year do it off of 100%.
Okay. The third item was recommending that as an all IB school and a successful IB diploma program, that the release position that we have had for as long as I can remember for a CAS coordinator. CAS stands for Creativity, Activity, and Service, and it is a 2-year required component of the diploma program, and an important component. If they don't do the CAS hours and service, then they cannot get the diploma. This release period was taken away. And therefore it's been a disservice to our diploma program students. I know that there was discussion between Ms. Tookie and Dr. Steinmiller, but we are hoping that this release period is reinstituted for the 2024-2025 school year, so that the diploma program can continue, the students can continue to excel.
I have an update. That's why you saw in the proposal a testing coordinator / IB continuum support. That person would provide the CAS support as well as any extended essay or personal project. So what has been recommended by the PPLC has informed the priority for a testing coordinator / IB continuum support.
Okay, so that would be both then, be the testing coordinator and they would provide in that support. Okay, good, great, okay.
And so it wouldn't have to be a release period because it would be designed for that person to do it. And it would be actually then you would have more support because it's a now full-time position, not just one period.
And an example is of consolidating roles and giving, many hats to one person, which I mean, frankly, like
want here.
yeah,
Jesus.
like it, I mean, that kind of stuff has to happen, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, we're not Evanston
Goody.
Township. We don't have the tax base. All right. Great. Okay.
Such lovely.
Next, there are two more. A clear detention in school suspension, but I know that's not the proper terminology, but I don't hear it a lot. What is it called, Dr. Steinmiller?
Yeah.
Sorry?
Realignment, like lion and then realignment.
Realignment policy from administration regarding, so let's do that clear. A clear detention realignment policy from administration regarding excessive tardiness and excessive cuts and excessive missing of school days, but it's not there, and cuts that includes monthly share out at LSC meetings on data of students serving these detentions, restorative, and this includes attendance data. The vote passed unanimously. I can't express to all of you enough that this is, I know, a nationwide problem, but it is so serious at Lincoln Park. The students are not in front of us, and for a variety of reasons. And we can't do our job unless they're in front of us. So I know that this is a reactive motion, but hopefully moving forward, this LSC and teachers or admin can come together and figure out a constructive approach to, getting kids back in front of us and re-stimulating intellectual curiosity and resilience. So this is just about a clear detention policy, feedback from those individuals that are a part of that, so we know what the work is that is being done and if it's effective, and data supporting that.
Update. That recommendation informs changing the one SEL position to a 52-week at-risk coordinator, because that is part of the responsibilities to not only help support attendance, but monitor those processes. And so that's why I recommended that shift as well.
Is there no one within that department that can prioritize that as part of their duty? Dr.
Yes,
Steinmiller?
part of it, I mean, the community rep liaison, that there's a part for like our truant students, and that is a part of the community rep liaison. Part of some of our dean processes, they are working through it, but I know they are, again, as we talk about the different needs, it's making sure we have somebody to plan it out. A lot of our positions are 39.6. You don't have that person here over the course of the summer to help build that out. And we're running summer school. We're doing a lot of things. So an at-risk coordinator, that is part of their job. And also then to build expectations for security, to enforce the attendance and enforce some of these processes, but also to help support the students who are at risk because of truancy. So that's why it's not an addition of a position, it's redefining. We have, for example, 2 youth intervention specialist positions that are defined specifically, and they're 39.6. They could be able to take potentially one of those and redefine it to be this specific role. It also gives them leverage in their the roles and responsibilities to have support for our security to enforce some of this. And then contractually for the security, they would respond to that as well.
I think that some of our concern was that the youth interventionists or specialists that were hired, we haven't heard, anything about really what was going on, with those positions and how they were improving, the outcomes. So it would be nice to have data, I think, supporting, moving forward. I agree that maybe we need these positions, but I think then I would argue that they should, that those positions need to be held accountable for their position. And there needs to be more transparency of what's going on there.
Ms. Kaler, while I agree with what you just said, I don't think that that was the intention of this particular motion. I think that this particular motion was in regards to attendances
Data.
and tardy issues that create detentions, and whether or not those detentions are actually served, and what number of students are completing these detentions, or using these bogus 5-for-1 things. And I mean, there have been parents here echoing concerns in regards to the detention policy and how those are handled, and how they do or do not allow privileges for certain events and stuff. And I think it was more that, not the realignment space necessarily, or the way that our like behavioral specialists are changing safety security data.
So how can we move forward with that, Dr. Steinmiller? A clear policy, maybe moving into next year that, I don't know.
We'll work with our
Tracking
we'll work with specific SCL defined positions to support that work and set expectations towards events aligned with clear goals that we'll establish as an LSC in school.
I'm just going to say I have to leave for another commitment. I think that means, I would suggest, and my guess is people can just continue to finish out the conversation, but I think formally that means the meeting is no longer occurring, even though we're all still here kind of having the meeting, but formally it's not. Is that right?
So before you leave, I had an idea.
Yeah.
And
Could we finish the PPLC report out and the other motions?
I'm going to be on Zoom for at least another 15 minutes. So, if you want to raise the idea, then we could do it that way.
Can I finish then? So
Sure.
thank you. Thanks. So to add to that, a proactive approach that passed unanimously was based as a result of tardies the motion is to curb increased incidence of tardies, absences, and class cutting. We recommend that LPHS immediately become a closed campus school with no off-campus lunch until school-wide attendance figures are brought up. We talked about this with doctors. We said to at least 94%, which was a little ridiculous. And this vote passed unanimously. Dave, Dr. Steinmiller?
Yeah, we talked a lot about the unreasonability of 94% and the historical attendance data of our school. We also talked about, plans that are being thought about and implemented as far as from a facilities standpoint, in closing the campus, from a safety security standpoint, and human resource standpoint. How can we allocate security guards to a way that keeps tabs on kids coming and going from the building? I think there's been a lot of hypothetical talk about what plans can look like for next year. I have not seen anything official like written down or presented. But from what I've heard, the plans sound very good, and I think that they will be, or could be, very effective. It's a matter of actioning those plans and seeing what they, what they eventually look like, and hopefully, Dr. Steinmiller stays to his word, and these things are parts of our campus life starting next school year. So if that's the case, and we're gonna move on with some of those things, then I do think that there will be changes to attendance issues and tardy issues. So I'm encouraged by it. Let's see if it actually happens in the fall.
Dr. Steinmiller, are you good for me to keep going? Okay. Last but not least, the concerning the New Balance situation and meeting with Dr. Steinmiller, asking us to meet with him individually concerning the one of the teams collecting money and it being spent on trips rather than coming back into activity, into our student fees. The PPLC budget subcommittee recommends the immediate release of a redacted first meaning for student information privacy tracking document spreadsheet for the collection and dispersal of money for the basketball program. The spreadsheet was shared on screen in the recent LSC budget subcommittee, but has not been shared with LSC budget subcommittee members despite multiple requests. So we met with Dr. Steinmiller to ask for this, Dave. He's talking.
It seems that both parties on each side are.
Dave, sorry, this vote passed unanimously, but go ahead.
Yeah. It seems as though parties on both sides of this topic are at an impasse. The conversation was lengthy, and I think on the one side there's a desire for transparency. On the other side, there's a desire for it to not spill into conversations regarding personnel. And there was not really a conclusion that was made one way or the other. I know that Dr. Steinmiller has invited individuals to come talk about this topic. I know that there's PPLC and LSC members who are continuing to pursue this. I would encourage them to find time to meet with Dr. Steinmiller. It seems as though we've had some requests from higher up, or some people have been pursuing requests from higher up as far as getting to the bottom of this or finding some outcome. I don't know what that outcome necessarily is. I think that like we're letting those higher up offices in CPS do their investigation or look into it, I guess I can say. But as far as the conversation after for our PPLC follow up with Dr. Steinmiller, there was not a lot of like conclusion or resolution that came from this particular motion.
Happy to set up a meeting to talk to anybody.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we did, but you would not present us with that sheet. So.
Yeah, that wasn't the meeting, but I'm happy to set one up with you to go over it together.
Go over what? Go over what part together?
Your request to go over the document together.
Well, we did. Right? We asked if we could see that document and you said we couldn't.
I'm happy to meet with you and go over the document.
Okay, well, we'll do that then. Great. And that is it.
Yeah, the only other outstanding PPLC thing that we need to address is we have a bell schedule and professional development schedule vote that is upcoming. The schedule vote and the bell schedule, like the use of PD days, whether we're flexing them, and the bell schedule vote are sort of dovetailed together because one can impact the other. And so subcommittees on the PPLC need to make a plan for what content is included for the flex PD days, if that ultimately is an outcome of the vote. So that needs to be a priority for us well in advance of the bell schedule vote happening. So I think that's anything
the PPLC
else.
the PPLC subcommittee of the curriculum and instruction that decides flex day, if indeed the staff and faculty choose to vote for that. did reach out to Dr. Steinmiller on Monday and we haven't received a response. So we were hoping Dr. Steinmiller in your busy life to look at that and respond to it so that we can move forward with recommendations. It was sent by Ms. Crown.
Yes, and I believe it's been in contact with one of the assistant principals, Mr. Stuckey, who has been coordinating the flex days with the PPLC for the last several years and will continue to do so at this point.
Okay, so can Mr. Stuckey then reach out? Because I know that nobody has reached back out to us, including Ms. Crown.
I know you can't
Because he
see him,
was-
or maybe you can, but he's shaking his head yes. He's nodding yes. So maybe Brown
That's excellent.
will
Great.
follow up with Stuckey saying that he will do something with his hand, some magic. Okay, cool.
Thank you. That's it. Thanks, Dave, for not forgetting that.
The timing of the bell schedule and flex has not, that vote timing has not been officially like set up or anything yet, but it from my union delegate counterparts, I believe it is like relatively quickly upcoming, but I don't know, maybe.
And to clarify, bell schedule does not mean like our start time, like that's set by transportation. What it means is like, do we have a shortened Wednesday? That kind of stuff, just to like, they aren't voting that we're starting at like 9 or 10 o'clock, but I just want to clarify.
It's for our professional
like
development.
that block schedule versus not, or is that?
Yes, if we were going to transfer to a block schedule,
Right.
that would be included in that vote.
The PPL subcommittee had back in the fall semester already tabled the idea of having a block schedule for next year. At least, that's not a priority of the PPLC to iron out those details as of right now. So the vote is much more
What is the?
whether or not there's flex Wednesdays for PD and what kind of bell schedule we end up going with, whether it's the contractual model of 50-minute class periods where it's starting at 7:55 and ending at 3:10, or something like what we have now, or some hybridized other model, as long as the PPLC and the PPC, the union delegates, can make the number of instructional minutes correctly, comply with CPS requirements, those kinds of things.
I know historically we've done the shortened Wednesdays.
Yeah.
Is there an idea of shortened Fridays instead of the Wednesday? Is that a concept?
Would be conversations that the PPLC and PPC would.
Those would be conversations that the PPC and PPLC need to talk about together in order to, right, like those kinds of things would be proposed, and then if debated upon and chosen, included on the ballot, right, that would be like if we're going to have a flex day, do we want it on Wednesday or do we want it on Friday? Earlier in my time here, we had a late start Thursdays, for example. So I've worked under multiple different iterations of the same kind of thing, as long as it's contractually legal and is the voice of whatever the teachers want for that particular next school year. There's been at least 3 different bell schedules of these kinds that I've had since being here for my 11 years.
I think the PPLC just wants to make sure that the flex time is used constructively. We value our time, and so to make sure that that it is. And the second is the idea of doing it on a Friday, the concern is that students may see this as a day to maybe not come to school because it's short, just maybe how the teenage brain works. So Wednesday seemed to be a better option.
Yeah, I mean, guys, we just have to note that we have like half of a LSC.
This is not
pretty much.
I appreciate, I think, especially if we are doing this to be intentional and purposeful, to respect the reports and the work of everybody here. For us to report out in a non-LSC meeting, I just don't think demonstrates that appropriately. I would consider that if there's items for us to continue moving forward, that we table it either until the next LSC meeting. I don't encourage tacking that onto the budget meeting that we have. I think that should maintain one focus. But I would recommend that we table everything. I don't have to vote on it because it's not an LSC meeting, but I would just say that I just want to respect everybody else in this group, and I just think we need to stop. Is that okay with informally as a non-LSC meeting? Does everybody agree with that? Give me a
So
thumbs
they-
up. You don't even have to vote.
So-
All right.
I agree with that.
Stop. All right. I say we stop.
Who wants to come to the police court?
Not I. I'm JJ. I appreciate you being here to report out. I apologize if we don't have a meeting for you to report out at.
No problem.
All right. Thank you all.
So the idea that I had, you
Yeah,
know,
I'm up.
I know we're just informal now, but
Yeah.
the idea that,
You've
yeah.
been informal. Technically, we had.
So the idea that I had was for the Monday meeting, I don't know what the intent was for the budget meeting, if it was intended to be a 5-minute thing or if it was intended to be a full discussion. But my idea was, now that we have a new elected LSC, can we invite them for the discussion? They're not voting, but just for the discussion, they could be invited to also discuss because, they're going to be also impacted by whatever we decide.
Doesn't need to be a closed session, does it?
No, what I would say is if they're going to be,
Is it a public meeting?
It is a,
I think
it's got to be
I
a
think what you
public
do,
meeting.
we could have as an agenda of an informal meeting, just, hey, so we have to put, anytime there's 4 of us meeting, we have to post it anyway, because
Right.
conversation about school business. But what you could have is, the agenda is, open conversation around the budget, right? And
Yeah.
you could invite the new group to come in,
Mhm.
and it's not structured like this where you have 2 minutes of talking time. What I would probably discourage is formalizing that for them because they haven't been through training. They aren't official, and I don't want to set expectations for them. That's like, I intend in July with the new board to have a retreat for the LSC to really talk about
Yeah.
the real expectations of an LSC and functioning of our LSC because of even like what's just happened right here. Like,
Right. Right.
like,
Yeah, no, it's just to bring, if they have any other ideas or whatever.
Not like, it's not like you're in, an apprenticeship necessarily, but,
Right.
but any experience to inform your,
I really like the idea of podcasts. I really think that's a great recommendation. Because I'll be honest, like, these are important things. Like, even like, I like PLC is part of why those things are being recommended. But at this point, I don't know what length we have. But, it's tough. But I don't know, we'll figure it out. I mean, we'll have to go. So. But yeah, if you have any other thoughts or questions, email me thoughts with it, because that's, the intent of this is to give time to stew on it.
We need to stop it.
Oh, yeah. I know. I said stop. Okay. You want to set up